can we do the intro again? Because I'm going to need to cut that because I still had fucking music playing in the background because I'm a professional.
Do you want me to bully Mike again so that we're all ready with the same energy?
The authentic energy. I mean, I would like to reset to the start.
You know, Mike, have you considered just not making sounds?
3, 2,
We apologise for the
1.
inconvenience.
You are the dancing queen. Is that right? Is that what we're doing? We're doing copyrighted music, yeah? Hi everyone, welcome to the You Trash Crew. It's Star Trek Iskandar. I don't know what I said, but I'm pretty sure it was this. It's Iskandar time. Iskandar is great. I'm GMing Occam's Razor. Now, let's talk about helps and hinders. I have heard rumors that some people are not accruing trash bags, which you should be. Let us know if you're not, and we'll do some magic to fix that. But if you are accruing trash bags, you can spend trash bags for minor helps and hinders. You can also spend human cash monies on minor, moderate, and major helps and hinders. I'm not
Cash
sure
bags.
Oh no, now I can say that's not very cash money of you if someone does a
Cash.
hinder I don't like.
Money.
It's not very trash money of you.
Trash. Oh yes, amazing. That's right. Emily gets all the points. So I'm not sure how major works in Iskandar, but try and find out. You should find the info for doing that in the doobly-doo. Remember that hinders are one single United States cent. I think possibly a Canadian cent. I can't remember what currency we're set up for. More expensive. Anything else I need to say? No, I don't think so. I hope you're all doing really well and are not too impacted by any adverse weather that may be falling upon you at this very moment.
Dice.
Yes, dice are great. So let us begin with a cutscene. We are in a Starfleet vessel. Red alert sirens are blaring, but all else is dark. We are in a room that we pretty soon realize is a sick bay. There is a viewport outside of which we see the starfield blotted out for a couple of seconds by something large outside the ship. We see a man in a Starfleet uniform holding a hyperspray in his hand. We don't see his face, we don't see most of him, but we see him hold the hyperspray, bring it up to his neck, and he falls, and the credits open and play, and they're beautiful, and the theme tune is Grammy winning. And we cut to an external shot of our favorite starship, the USS Enterprise D. The starship Iskandar. The USS Enterprise D was destroyed several years ago, actually.
Still be our favorite.
It's still your favorite.
She's got a fat ass.
He is definitely
Thick.
Look, the Enterprise D is thick, but the Enterprise E is sleek, and I think
love
that's
the E.
the way. Yeah, the E is fantastic. So we see the Iskandar at warp. Your orders are pretty mundane at the moment. You're performing a routine survey of Sector 872, and a communication comes through, and Ensign Tarek informs you that it's being patched straight through to the captain's ready room.
Talandra will move to the ready room. We have no Kantos, so I guess Lieutenant Vance, you have the con.
Yes, Commander.
It's a secure channel, and the image of someone you don't really know. It's Admiral Frelnar, who is the flag officer for this group of sectors. Captain Talandra, I'll get to the point. A week ago, we dispatched the Berenike to survey gravitic anomalies in the Raxikos system. There were signs that some of the readings coming from the system were artificial. But the whole system is a gravitic shoal, so there's no way to be sure of anything just from a listening post. Since subspace communications don't work within the shoal, Captain Redan was given strict orders to leave the system every 48 hours and provide a report. Now 72 have passed, and we've heard nothing. You're the closest ship by a long way, and your warp drive is well suited to the conditions in the system. Then again, Berenike is Intrepid-class, so well, I'll send you the latest astrometric data, and you'll have to make whatever adaptations you need to. Make contact with the Berenike, noting that you'll be limited to electromagnetic radio and render any assistance they might need. You'll lose subspace comms somewhere between 40 and 35 AU from the Raxacos star. Given its proximity to the Romulan neutral zone, Captain, well, let's put it this way. I'll leave it to you to judge for yourself the fine line between calculated daring and unnecessary endangerment of ship and crew. Beware of that line, Captain. There's a court-martial on one side of it. The details will be with you imminently. Any questions?
No, sir.
All right. Frelnar out. And the image vanishes. And I will provide a bit of information to Izzy and Mike in your Discord chats.
So nice being the shooty one. What do I need to know?
I resign my post and leave everything to Lieutenant Vance.
Gonna shoot everything.
Oh.
That's some news.
That is some big news. Thanks for that news.
Okay, I'm glad you enjoyed that noise. That noise? Yeah, I'm sticking with it. I'm doubling down.
I see. Talandra will call a meeting of the senior staff.
I go to that meeting twice.
I only go once.
I only go
And with
once.
only one accent.
I'm only really there in spirit.
Tarek, get on in here.
I mean, Tarek is I
Come
guess
on,
the
buddy.
chief operations officer.
Yeah.
So he might show up.
Bring up Linkovich. See who else we've got kicking around. How's Aldous doing?
Who's acting chief helm officer? Like,
I guess that will still be Tarek. I guess given the circumstances, like
for sheer convenience of efficiency of NPCs.
Your efficiency of not having to come up with another name.
For us to forget, like, if we did, we've just got to kill them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anybody's ever Helm and it's not Kantos, they just die.
We're at named character capacity. Any more have to join and leave in the same session.
or be one of the horde of security officers that buzz around Vance at any given moment.
That's true.
Nevertheless, Talandra gathers the senior staff together, obviously having patched in the course corrections, and will put forward the information as was received. She leads a little bit more by committee.
I'm going to share in the Iskandar crew chat the technical details about this gravitic shoal that I spoke about.
Many thanks.
I'll read this out to the audience. It's not secret. So the thing the Admiral referred to is called a shoal, but technically is a supragravitic fold. It's an uneven area of both space-time and subspace, making warp travel impossible. Even impulse travel, which does involve the generation of a warp field, very risky. Subspace communications becomes impossible, and the sensors and shields tend to refract in very unhelpful ways. It's an awful thing to send a starship into. One of the consequences of which is sometimes, and the reason that in Starfleet these phenomena are called shoals, is because every now and then, like a sail ship of old running into an unexpected sandbank, sometimes your warp field will completely collapse, rendering impulse and warp travel impossible, and your ship essentially immobile until space refolds itself. If you're very lucky, when it folds in on itself completely, your entire ship will be trapped in a little pocket dimension of its own. If you're unlucky, only a portion of your ship will be stuck in this fold.
I imagine that Strange is looking at the pad with the look of,
Mm-hmm.
So, why
You have,
exactly are we sending ships in there? Sounds awful.
There's much that could be learned within such shoals. In fact, one of the best ways we can learn about how to circumnavigate them and avoid them is by researching within them.
As it stands, what matters is less the why and more the ship that is in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
We have corrected course towards the Baraniki, and I shall be accepting thoughts about what we shall do going forward.
Oh, sorry, I should also add, you have been sent as well as that, the Berenike's flight plan, because obviously you won't be able to see them until you're up close, but you know the exact route that they were supposed to take.
So aside from the various means in which we're going to have to try to employ to protect the Iskandar against, also getting trapped, and I'm sure I can do what I can with the deflector systems. Any chance that we can come up with some sort of dowsing rod setup? I have no idea what basis that would be upon, but the idea of us trying to, stick our noses in, use a probe without having to also go in to try to kind of narrow down the field at all.
You're suggesting we send a probe as a almost advanced party to follow the Baranike's trajectory, and then we pursue it.
I'm operating off is there any way in which we can even begin to narrow down the search from the outside? And a probe was just the first and most obvious tool we have at our disposal.
It's not necessarily a bad idea.
It's not, no, and certainly it is possible that navigating our way through the gravitic shoal could be done with a series of probes around the Iskandar to inform us in advance of where any potential anomalies that we could fall into are.
I think that's very workable.
Lieutenant Casey, would you do me a science, please?
That is a mere fair at 2.
That's fine. Fair is all you need. So the best way to make this plan work, bearing in mind that once you enter the shoal, you will be restricted to EM radio, and therefore the speed of light becomes a factor. To get the most accurate information, you will want to be a certain fairly short distance from the probe. However, if you configure the probe properly, this should allow you, bearing in mind that what happens to subspace signals is they are completely diffracted. They become scrambled beyond recognition. However, mundane electromagnetic signals, such as, for example, radio and light and things like that, get a bit lensed but are ultimately easily readable. If you were to do this, the best way to do it would be to increase the signal strength as much as possible. You could possibly be as far away as 2,000 kilometers from the probe and have a fair warning of any problems that the probe encounters.
Oh, that's not much.
2,000 kilometers isn't great. It's better than 0 kilometers.
It's one way or another. We will need to be close, but
all right. Do we have any means then we can reckon of trying to pick up the trail of the ship? Like, sure, we send in a probe if they're not there within a very short sensor radius, which the probe's going to have. Like, if the ship ain't there right now on the standard formatting, I'm assuming that the probe ain't going to see nothing. I don't know. Obviously, I'd look for warp signatures if I were trying to track a ship, but that ain't going to work in The thing, how big is it?
The Berenike.
No, the anomaly.
Oh, the anomaly.
You can bring up a sensor reading. The anomaly is it's not exactly centered on the star, but of course the star being I'm about to say a phrase that would upset a lot of people. I don't mean containing most of the system's gravity, but the star possesses almost all of the gravitational pull in the system for obvious reasons. It's pretty much spread from the equivalent distance of the Sun and Pluto. It is, to all intents and purposes, system-wide.
So 2,000 kilometers is not.
2,000 kilometers is nothing.
No.
And of course, we will be limited in our ability to travel through the anomaly.
In fact,
Also,
if they're not near the edge, probably ain't gonna see shit.
Also, we must consider the fact that we are hoping to rescue the ship or evacuate the people. Both will be very difficult to do with the anomaly in place. I'm sorry, Universe, I interrupted you.
No, I was going to say was the trick with the probe is very useful for you because, of course, it means you can make course corrections to compensate for gravitic folding, but you have a certain amount of normal sensor resolution. The main problem in this area is that your sensors get refracted, so sometimes things are a bit closer, further away, or in slightly different headings than you think they are. But in theory, especially if the Berenike had the good sense to broadcast on normal EM bands as well as in subspace, you should be able to spot a transponder signature from far enough away. Your problem will be more physically navigating to it than seeing it. While you ponder that, let's move over to Captain Athan. Mm-hmm. Captain Athan was asked to stay behind after the Peace and Reconciliation Summit because of some delicate matters that needed taken care of, and it was discovered at the end of our last adventure that some sort of political hoo-ha has occurred within the Romulan Senate. You and a lot of other Starfleet diplomats and flag officers have been gathered. You notice that there are no members of the Federation Foreign Service here. This is purely a Starfleet meeting. And you've been gathered by one Admiral Markievich, who is the head of the Starfleet Diplomatic Corps. He is an intensely posh and pompous man, but nevertheless an extraordinary diplomat. And he gathers you all around, and you're sitting in this room that a couple of days ago was probably some sort of casual hangout spot for tired diplomats to have ractaginos and pretzels and whatnot, but now has become a temporary crisis room. He gathers you all and he asks the computer to seal the room, security field level 4. Thank you all for joining me so promptly. There's no time for introductions. I'll brief you on the particulars, and then we can get to work. A coup d'etat is underway within the Romulan Imperium. We are still piecing together the details, but it appears that not too long ago, Praetor Telora and the Continuing Committee were removed from power by a faction calling itself the Provisional Protectorate. This faction is led by Proconsul Donatra, formerly an ambitious commander in the Romulan Star Legion and a one-time ally of the late Praetor Shinzon, the less said about which the better. She has the full support, as far as we can tell, of the Tal Shiar and a few Legion admirals. She also, as of 3 hours ago, commands a majority in the Romulan Senate, who appear to have voted to recognize the Protectorate as the provisional government of the entire Imperium. The coup has been frustrated, however, by the fact that the Continuing Committee have not been captured, but have instead managed to leave Romulus. For those not familiar with Romulan politics, and who can blame you, the Continuing Committee is the executive branch of the Romulan Republic and hold all the keys to the castle. Presently, They're holding court aboard the warbird Deldarax, which 3 hours ago decloaked in the neutral zone, surrounded by a fleet of a size not seen since the invasion of Cardassia. The committee claims to have the full support of the Romulan military, which certainly explains the size of the fleet. Both the Provisional Protectorate and the Continuing Committee have reached out formally to the Federation. The Protectorate demands full recognition as the legitimate government of the Imperium, and the Committee asserts that it is still very much in charge, and that this is an internal matter which will soon be resolved and which the Federation need not involve itself in. I have received a message from the Presidium of the Federation, which is managing to put both sides off for the time being, but since both the Starfleet Diplomatic Corps and the Federation Foreign Service have their most senior diplomats on this starbase, we have been tasked with making formal recommendations to the Presidium. The problem is, as you might have gathered by the fact that there is not one member of the Federation Foreign Service in this room, the two organizations cannot agree on the correct course. My colleagues and I believe that the Continuing Committee remains the legitimate government. They are likely to resolve the coup in their favor, considering that they have the full support of the Romulan Legion. And let us not forget that Praetor Telora has actively pursued and maintained peace with the Federation. Meanwhile, the Foreign Service is of a mind to recognize the Protectorate. They cite the Treaty of Algernon, the details of which are rather tedious, but in short, one of the clauses of the Treaty of Algernon that the Federation have signed to is that the Senate is recognized as sovereign within the Romulan Imperium. I believe that this interpretation of the treaty is shallow and a little foolish, and the Protectorate's going to fail inevitably. They appear to be made up of nationalists and isolationists if the Federation supports the Protectorate and they somehow succeed in their coup. Then the best case scenario is that our relations with the Romulans will cool to freezing point. The worst is that we find ourselves once again staring down the barrel of Cold War. The Federation Council is likely to take the recommendation of the Foreign Service, which is likely to force the Presidium's hand, which is why we have a very short window of time, my friends and colleagues, to persuade the Presidium of our case or persuade the Foreign Service of our case. Thank goodness for the Federation's asymmetrical approach to democracy, eh? Anyway, that is the problem I present to you. We have perhaps a few days before the Presidium is forced to make a decision. They will be receiving pressure from the Foreign Service, from the Federation Council, and from us if they've got any sense about them. We don't have time to discuss all of this in a committee, so I've assigned you all to task forces. Here are the particulars, various items concerning specifics of the Treaty of Algernon, historical relations between the Federation and the Romulans, and so forth. We need to find any angle, either legal or moral, to convince the Foreign Service that they are in the wrong about this. Meanwhile, no doubt they are going to try to convince us of the same, and regardless of my intuition that they are wrong, I am obliged as a citizen of the Federation to keep an open mind and be persuadable by those I otherwise oppose. I have decided to take this, let's call it an office and be generous, as my command station. So if anything is needed, I shall be here. You're with me. Assemble your command crews. Captain Foster, you'll take command of Group B. And I'll trust to hear back from you within a few hours. Any questions? Oh, good. I do like a bit of silent unanimity. Dismissed, everyone. Quitacit consentire videtur is a motto this man takes very seriously. Yes, you should have stayed on the ship. It's much less complex over there. And you and Captain Foster head out.
do appreciate that we've been given our instructions on making sure that we can come up with a good argument for supporting the continuing committee.
Yes. Well, look, there are nuances. The Treaty of Alderaan does command us to respect the sovereignty of the Senate, but also to recognize that the only legitimate executive branch of the government is the continuing committee.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and also, as the Admiral's made it perfectly clear, we are not simply taking legal arguments in this matter if we are to consider the potential risks of the Protectorate closing borders and reverting everything back to a chilly state of 20-odd years ago. We are being pragmatic about this.
I think so. He's right. The Romulans, however brief this period of peace might turn out to be, for the time being, the proconsul is actively seeking it.
Honestly, one of my particular thoughts is supporting the Protectorate is a relatively easy thing to do because, despite the risk it inherently has, because in many ways we do nothing. We refuse the continuing committee access, enforce the border, have communicate with the Protectorate. Of course, aside from the possible consequences of what the Protectorate would do, that probably will rather harm relations if the continuing committee then reassert control and we've backed them. But in pragmatic terms, it's easy. What does supporting the continuing committee look like? Because if we're going to do that, I suppose if we do either, we probably should make sure that the side we're backing wins. But one of them is already in power.
As far as they're each concerned, they're both in power.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we should probably consider not just the constitutional function of these organizations, but who's in charge of them. Remember that Proconsul Telora had the support of the Federation when she ran for proconsul.
Mm-hmm.
She was considered to be a moderate candidate. She was of some, albeit eventual, assistance with the Shinzon affair.
Mm-hmm.
She is in some ways a poster child for the intervention of the Federation in Romulan affairs. If we support her legitimacy, there's not an unrealistic possibility she asks for our military support in intervening against the Protectorate.
Yes.
Which would be...
sticky.
Yes. I don't believe it would be advisable, regardless of what side we choose, to send Starfleet ships across the neutral zone at red alert.
I agree. I suppose then the answer is supported if the continuing committee are entering the neutral zone with a large array of the Romulan Navy, then I'm sure that there are all sorts of practical support that they can be given without us committing active starships. However, I fear the Admiral is possibly... I do not believe he is giving the fact that the Protectorate have the backing of the Tal Shiar as much gravity as I would have expected.
I'm glad you think so. Me neither. Yes.
The Tal Shiar would not have backed the Protectorate if the Protectorate was going to collapse as quickly as the Admiral seems to think.
No, and in fact, because of the nature of the Tal Shiar and the Talon-like grip it has over the Romulan state, I imagine that the longer this division goes on, the more the Tal Shiar will find a way to make those admirals who've backed the continuing committee doubt their allegiance. From a simple moral point of view, the Protectorate establishing itself is a coup d'etat.
Yes.
There's no mechanism in the Romulan government that allows for the creation of such a body. It's been legitimized by the Senate, but it's not constitutional.
No, it is an illegal takeover. I agree
Which
there.
we cannot support, of course.
No. However, neutrality is always a hypothetical.
Yes.
We do not get involved in internal matters, blah, blah, blah. It's odd that Admiral Denatra has taken this step.
Well, we
After
don't...
such recent upheaval in the upper echelons, I'm surprised an officer who was as entrenched in the Shinzon affair has decided that what she really wants is to support and enable another coup d'etat.
It may well become a very trite refrain, but I must probably consider the Tal Shiar. We're saying this is Denatra committing a coup. Well, this coup does put her in command of the Empire, but who's in command of her? The answer in the Romulan state is usually always the Tal Shiar.
Also, we speak of the legitimacy of the Protectorate and of the Continuing Committee, and of course, however, the Continuing Committee's institutional memory is limited after the Shinzon affair. They've just had to rebuild pretty much the entire Senate.
Yes.
And so the idea that that's a vulnerable... That's a test of of the Romulan constitution in and of itself.
There are a small but significant number of lifetime senators. When the Senate was assassinated by Shinzon's machinations, all of those seats became vacant. The Tal Shiar will have seen that as an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. But then, in many ways, that renders the Continuing Committee just as much as... Longevity does not dictate power. However, when the Continuing Committee has only within the last few months been established into its position, they have a somewhat more shaky grounds to insist that they are the true leaders of Romulus.
I agree. I think this conversation would be very different if the military had sided with the Protectorate instead.
Oh, I think this... Again, we can talk about the ethics all we like, but I think the situation would already be over and we would have no choice except to maybe somewhere lodge a formal complaint and then invite them over for tea.
That's probably right.
So what can we do? I think other than because if nothing else, the Presidium is going to respond to that. We can say all we like that we want the Continuing Committee to be in there, but what actually is that going to look like in terms of what is that going to cost the Federation?
I wonder if you'd be willing to... We're having these conversations, and I think that, if I might be so bold, I think that Admiral Markievicz is perhaps thinking of this in too blinkered a way.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you might approach the Foreign Service diplomats. They're going to be having a huddle just like ours right now. I don't want this to become a Starfleet versus the Federation situation. Nobody wins if that precedent gets set.
I agree.
In theory, they have all of the authority here. The Presidium listens to us for the same reason that we care that the Romulan military is with the Continuing Committee. We're the ones with the phasers.
At the very least, yeah, I was just going to say that at the very least I can ask them what they think that support for the Protectorate will look like in practical terms, because that's not a Weasley request or a insidious one. Then that makes them argue their case.
They might persuade you, in which case you might persuade me, in which case we might persuade Markievicz. But you know, he wants us to operate as if we're completely isolated from them, whereas I don't think that was the Presidium's intention at all.
Mm-hmm.
And how will it help the Presidium if these two bodies present precisely opposite conclusions?
No, it won't. And the last thing we want is for Starfleet to become more separated from all of our civilian bodies.
One of the... I know who to speak to. Jarash Enyo. President, I should say, Jarash Enyo.
Mm-hmm.
After his term ended, he rejoined the Foreign Service. He's here.
All right.
This is someone who knows what it's like to command the Presidium.
And has rather certain grasp of deployment of force under difficult situations.
To perhaps speak to you in a way I might not, under official circumstances, Jiao Zhenyu was never a particularly strong-willed character.
I fear that with his record, I'm not enormously surprised.
He, against the advice of several on the Federation Council and indeed in Starfleet, supported what essentially amounted to a coup d'etat on Earth itself, and promptly walked back on it for no reason other than pragmatism. I would not say he was a man with a strong moral center, but I would say he was someone who has his finger on the pulse of things, sometimes to a fault.
Interesting. And my read had, obviously, from the outside of matters, was simply that he'd allowed himself to be ridden roughshod over by strident figures in Starfleet Command.
Perhaps.
And that they took the blame, but who knows?
Well, I don't know the man well, but that is my interpretation of events. I don't believe a Federation president should value the counsel of a Starfleet officer more than the counsel of democratic officials.
I will speak with him.
He's a place to start anyway. And I'll pore over the Treaty of Algernon, which is something I hoped I wouldn't have to do again.
Yes, I think I'll definitely pick this job.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Back on the Iskandar, you are about to enter. You've entered the outer edges of the Raxikos system, and you are an AU or so from entering the shoal.
Our primary focus must be the protection of the ship. There is no point in exploring and rescuing, or attempting to, if we destroy or damage the Iskandar in the process, to the extent that another ship must be sent for us.
Quite so.
Plus, if we make progress with that, we should be able to protect the Baraniki enough to rescue those on board. Lieutenant Strange, I would like you to focus on that. Lieutenant Casey, focus on the location of the Baraniki. Liaise with astrometrics if need be.
Yes, Commander.
Lieutenant Vance, you have the con. Inform me if anything changes.
Aye, Commander.
And Talandra is going to go for a little walk.
Where are we walking to?
Talandra is going to walk down to security, wherein she may find Lieutenant Carisal.
I rather imagine she may well find Carousel there.
Hot off the trauma of everything that happened in the last adventure. How's Zal doing?
He's very pensive and contemplative a lot of the time. A lot of holodeck time is booked out. And yes, imagining that he was at the... I suppose there isn't a reason why he would be at the security briefing, now that I've mentioned it. If Vance is going to be there, there's no reason for Zal to have been there.
Hence why Talandra is heading down to...
Yeah, I imagine he's just running off a regular security report with some rando ensigns that will be dismissed from the scene the moment another named actor walks into the scene.
Leave 5s, a 10 is here.
Commander.
Lieutenant,
How can I help?
I am aware that you have been returned to active duties after the conference.
Yes, I'm feeling more myself.
Good. However, emotionally speaking, I'm aware that things can affect you strangely when dealing with matters of grief or emotional strife. And she is going to hand Zal the pad with the briefing that she got, not the full everything.
Takes it, taps through it. Raiden.
Yes.
As in our Raiden.
I recall you both being quite close, yes.
All three of us were close. I'm glad the symbiont survived. Last I heard, it was a dicey thing.
Nevertheless, I wish you to know that should this have an impact on you, I am happy to sign you off of active service.
No, I've been making use of the counselor and partaking in various degrees of meditation. I'm more aware of my failures and my shortcomings than I ever have been, and if I feel that I am emotionally compromised, I will say so. In this matter, yes, Ryder and I were close. I can cope with the idea that we might see an old schoolmate out there, or that there might be bad news ahead.
It is more the bad news I was concerned about.
We live in hope, and we strive for the best with an optimistic outlook. If that cannot be achieved, then at least we have made steps in the right direction. How are you on the news?
Perfectly acceptable, thank you.
And you will let me know if that changes.
It is unlikely to, but I appreciate your sentiment.
Okay.
I also wished for you to come to the bridge. I believe that I will need to divide security and tactical when we actually reach the shoal.
Happily.
She leaves sort of without a word, expecting him to come with her.
Yeah, of course. That's how that goes. Yeah, he will trail.
Were you doing something? I'm not interested.
Who cares about those paid extras? They can't even. They're not vocal extras. They're background extras.
One of them will try and talk, and we'll leave.
They're just SAG pay scale. No one cares about them.
And Lieutenant, while it is important for you to... Izzy's completely lost the word.
Cry.
Imagine a Vulcan saying that. Just cry it out. That's the best thing.
It's important for you to just, really, really hug it out, While it is important for you to consider your flaws and failings, it is also very important that you are aware of your qualities.
Thank you.
And I guess the scene will shift with her coming back to the bridge, taking the captain's chair and being prepared for all the stuff.
Captain on bridge.
Such a Vulcan shit pep talk. It's important to think about your failures. Think about good shit too, but
he said I've been dwelling a lot on how much I fucked up, and she's like, yeah, you did, but also good thing.
She practically said, in Vulcan terms, "You're the PogChamp to me, friend." I gave you a little dig in the arm.
It's important, Zal, to remember that to me you will always be cash money.
Yeah.
So like Star
I demand
Star Trek-
Talander only speak in Vulcan memes from now on.
Well, look, Star Trek is set several hundred years in the future. We don't know that somewhere there isn't a USS Poggers or something because they've lost the context for what that was.
They know it was
I
deeply
needed a
important
ship
to
name for my
society.
next plot.
They took GameStop to the moon. It's the USS GameStop.
Yeah.
No, GameStop would surely be a moon base.
Games.
Where do you think Gwen was from?
Operation GameStop is some horrible espionage plan deep in the Klingon Empire.
But also, like, certain ships are named after like themes. Like, you know, we've obviously got the strong like mythology theme going on, and there are like scientist themes. Clearly, we just need the meme theme, like the USS effing chat.
The USS Nyan Cat, which leaves a rainbow trail behind it as it rides through
God.
space.
That's
Phenomenal.
Boaty McBoatface.
Some weird energy to the Star Trek lore tonight.
It's almost too
Look.
obvious.
Look, they name things after pop culture all the time. Why is 60s pop culture more classy than the USS Boaty McBoatface?
Jesus Christ. Yeah, okay. So you've made some preparations. I mean, there's no need. I don't think there's Do you know what? Actually, no, I will. I think I will give you a chance to actually do some cool engineering / science stuff. Because you've been given the latest readouts of the state of the shoal, and the last readings that the Berenike took before it entered the shoal and was unable to report. So you're at most 72 hours out of date. So, well, but it's more than that by now. But whatever. What I will. So the following systems are negatively affected in different ways by. It's almost all of them by the shoal. So
I'm shocked.
I am going to. What's the best way of doing? It's a fun way of doing this. I know what I'm going to do. Each of you, by each of you, I mean Strange, Talandra, and Casey, will explain to me how you use your role on the ship to augment these systems. And you can each choose one of the 5 systems that I am about to name, which means 2 of them you won't have time to do anything with. So make your decision carefully. So the first one is... I'm going to skip warp engines because warp drive just doesn't work here. So we're going to say impulse engines.
Okay.
Tactical shields. The comms array. Transporters. And weapons and phasers. You can tell me you've augmented one of those each. I'll then ask you to roll, and however well you roll will determine how well you've managed to compensate the system.
Okay.
No, if I just had a little moment there. I only counted 4.
Impulse.
Impulse.
Tactical.
Impulse.
Yeah.
Yes, I missed impulse. I think I counted it with warp.
No, because the warp drive, there's nothing you can do for that. The warp drive is fecked.
But we're also not using it.
But yeah, well, what use do you have for it? In theory, in the old days, you couldn't use the warp drive inside a system anyway. They sort of stopped worrying about that at a certain point. But you're not supposed to do it inside a star system anyway, because you'll disrupt the planetary orbits, which is normally considered a bad thing.
Oh, if we go through a couple of wee planets, who cares? That just makes more planets, right?
Look, I think the way you're supposed to do it is you impulse drive to like a Lagrangian point, coast on that for a bit, and then impulse to the next one, and eventually work your way out of the system for no energy. Yeah. So yeah. Talandra, obviously, your thing is as the captain, you're essentially. Your justification for this is pretty much just you assign a work team to sort it out. But
My justification, hey you, stop it. And then it goes, okay, sorry, Captain.
basically, tell the shoal where to go. Over there.
I will
Okay.
nevertheless wait for the experts to pick their expert.
Yeah, so engines, was it engines, shields, comms,
Transporters,
transporters
phasers.
and weapons?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's see. Which of these sounds like it's the most, if we don't have this, we're knackered? And that's how Strange is picking his system to work on, basically. It's the which are we most screwed without? And I think that means engines, because if we haven't got impulse engines and we haven't got warp engines, then we're stuck.
Someone's going to have to row.
So someone's going to have to get out and push. I nominate Lieutenant Zal for pushing. He can just bench press the Iskandar out of the shoal. But yeah, so it'll be impulse engines.
Okay, fantastic.
That Strange will go for.
Yeah, do me an engineering roll then. Let's
7.
7 is ridiculous. So that's fantastic. Good. So essentially, unless the shoal, unless you actually end up being pulled up on a shoal or there's some extraordinary activity, you are reasonably confident that the impulse engines should work normally. You've managed to come up with an algorithm that dynamically calculates the best warp field depending upon factors outside the ship. So you're good on impulse engines. Okay.
Zal, you don't need to get the oars.
Antennae salute, so it goes slightly higher.
I don't like the antennae boner. That sounds very bad.
Zal, please put your antenna boner away.
I think for Casey's systems, he's actually going to look at the comms array, primarily because we know that there's a ship potentially somewhere in there, and also comms opens up so much in terms of internal and external communication that could be vital in terms of sending our own distress signals.
Yeah.
So that'll be his jam.
Oh, do you know what? I should have added. I should have actually added sensors as well. Yeah, sensors.
Oh, dang!
As well.
Now I'm torn.
You can
I
change
thought
your
sensors were
mind.
part of the comms array.
Do you know what? For this purpose, they probably are, because if you're suffering the sort of problems that means you can't get a radio signal in or out, that's a sensor problem as much as anything. So yeah, okay, comms and sensors, that's fine.
That sounds like my whole jam. I'm all over
That's
it.
fine.
What kind of role am I doing?
I guess from you it's a science roll.
Oh, I'd love that.
You're
Calm
doing
those sensors.
You're doing a bit of maybe you're doing some software tinkering or something like that, or something with the deflector dish. That's always science.
I also got a 7.
You also got a 7. Jesus Christ. Okay, fine.
stupid.
So you have set up you've done some sensor pings on the outskirts of the shoal, and you've worked out maybe a few 100,000 refraction patterns that the ship can automatically interpret on the fly, which means that if a signal comes in, the computer by and large should be able to compensate for the correct direction and distance.
Wonderful. I'm going to add that to my character sheet, and in the future I might use that as an advantage to base a future roll off.
Yes, so you'll have advantages. If anything goes wrong, these systems will go slightly less wrong as well. Talandra, what about you? What would you like to enhance?
I think that leaves Talandra, as far as I'm concerned, with tactical shields, because that's the thing that she thinks is important, and she's me.
Okay, so I think for this one, this isn't based on a stat that you have, I don't think. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Casey to roll science and Strange to roll engineering, and you to roll command.
Command isn't a...
Is command
That's
not a thing?
No.
Wow,
No.
that's baffling. Oh,
Rapport? Rapport is the convincing folks to do things with your words. Still.
do you know?
Ops, managing, that says here, management, scheduling, understanding and allocation of ships' resources.
Is just roll blank.
worse. It's 2.
Okay. What did you get, Strange?
A mere 2, because I
Mere 2?
rolled garbage on the dice.
Also a mere 2 because me and my boyfriend get the same rolls every time we roll.
Okay, so
We're the same person.
the thing I was going to say was, and Talandra's roll means she can pick the better of those 2 rolls.
Let you down one last
But
time.
the dice gods wanted you all to get 2s, so I guess that's what happens. Okay, I mean, a 2 is still a decent success. I mean, you know, you get used to things like 5s, 6s, and 7s, but like a 1 is a success. It's a success, isn't it? So, and a help has been redeemed. Okay, well, Framework Puzzles has redeemed a help, so I think then what I will do is I'll just bump that up +2. I'll make that a 4. So what we'll do is you are able to. One of the problems you foresee is these shields destructively interfering with each other. So you actually would end up with gaps in your shields. You have now managed to mitigate that problem. You are not sure if that problem will stay mitigated if you enter an area of particularly dense folding. So. See nothing. A shoal or a supragravitic fold is essentially an area of space-time and subspace where if you think something's 2 meters away in that direction, it might be 4 meters away in that direction. It makes things like warp fields and communications very, very difficult to sustain. And the reason it's called a shoal is literally in the sense of a sandbank. Of a ship being stuck on a sandbank unexpectedly in shallow water. Sometimes a ship going through this system will just come to a stop because their warp field collapses and then they're just stuck until the tide comes back in again.
And to answer your question, things can't be made of gravity. In Star Trek, graviton particles are a thing. They have been a thing in the Iskandar. Tough. Things can be made of gravity now.
In a way, aren't we all? So,
I mean, gravitons are a thing in real world quantum physics as well.
Yeah, but quantum physics isn't a real thing.
But in Star Trek, they're a thing you can emit from a flashlight. So it's a bit weirder. Okay, cool. So the thing is, they have tachyons in Star Trek too, but they never explain the problem with tachyons. Is you always receive them before they're admitted, and they never kind of explain that. They invented chronotons.
Tachyons are like the hang under of
but it's
particles.
Weird. But it's weird because they nice Pratchett reference. But it's weird because they have chronotons. I'm like, but you already have a real thing in physics that implies that something timey-wimey is whatever.
Technology often invents new shit when they really don't need
to at all. No, absolutely. Hashtag Tetrions. Okay, cool. So you have augmented these systems and you are ready to go. So I think the way we're going to do this mechanically is your engines and sensors / comms each have 2 advantages that you can spend to help out, and shields have 1 you can spend to help out should it become necessary. Okie flokey. So you head in, and there's no dramatic moment occur. Like the ship doesn't rumble and shake as it enters this area, but suddenly you have to turn off your subspace array because you start getting really weird garbled signals. You find it very difficult to you can no longer tell how far you are away from the nearest listening post, things like that. I have a hinder. Oh, very nice. Okay, so this is good. This is exactly what we want. So you have entered the system at the coordinates provided to you on the Berenike's flight plan, and you begin to follow their course. You are having to use internal telemetry. Something about this system that I've mentioned in chat. There are no planets any longer in this system. The whole place is a series of asteroid fields and sort of stretched out ring nebulae, where planets have partly been subsumed into the gravitic fold and have been destroyed and torn apart by those forces. They're still in orbit, but they are no longer entire. It's a fascinating system, but not really an easy one to study. And you continue to follow your course. And I like the fact that Lou has redeemed a hinder. So you are about 2 hours into what you anticipate to be a 3-hour first leg of your journey, when there's a brief bit. I think it's probably who would be on con? Is there a named character on con at the moment, or is it just con?
At Helm, I don't think we have a named character. I think it's like Tarek, if in doubt, or Ensign Nobody.
Well, Tarek's the ops officer, so everything ultimately comes through ops if in doubt. The Helm stops responding. We're Captain, we're reading full stop.
Lieutenant Strange, report.
Yeah, your warp field is gone.
I'm not entirely sure why we stopped, Commander. The warp field has gone, but I will try it and get it back online as soon as possible. And Strange will start tinkering with things to try and see why the warp field stopped, how to get the metaphorical physics spanner out of the engine, and then how to, restart it.
Okay, make me an engineering check. You can use one of your advances if you want to.
Probably don't need it. 6.
No, you probably don't need it. Okay, so essentially, you've entered an area of very high degree gravitic folding. There is, fortunately, because of the augmentations that you made, the warp field generator has not been damaged, which can sometimes happen when subspace goes nope. You literally just need to wait for the fold to unfold to a sufficient degree, and then essentially use the warp field generator to just push it out again and resume normal space. However, back on the bridge, another crisis has presented itself. Tarek reads an object heading towards you at impulse velocities. It is in fact, I don't have stats for Tarek. How would I roll ops just for... I guess someone roll me dice and we'll give Tarek a +2 on ops. This is a sensors and comms roll, so if you want to spend an advantage on it, you may do so.
Izzy, as acting captain, do you want to roll a dice?
Yeah. A dice or the dice?
The dice, the 2 dice.
Okay, I shall do the roll.
The super plural is dices, which is multiple sets of dice. I've invented super plurals. Nobody contradict me on that.
+1 for Ensign Tarek.
+1 for Ensign Tarek. Would you like to spend an advantage on it or leave it as it is?
I think I'd like to spend an advantage on it.
Okay, so you managed to compensate for the refraction caused by the fold, and he is able to resolve what the object is. This object flying towards you at impulse speeds is a small warp-capable vessel with no power to its engines. There's a distorted life sign reading on board. Transporter sensors can pick up one definite life sign, but you're not sure how many there are in total. And unfortunately, the vessel's shields are up.
Hail
So
them.
I'm going to give you three actions before the ship collides with the Iskandar.
Hail them.
Okay, you spent your advantage before, so the comms array is has compensated for the gravitic fold. There is no response, Captain.
Raise shields.
Okay, you raise shields. There is some destructive interference on the shields because of the high level of refraction from the gravitic fold. You may automatically dispel this by spending your shield's advantage, or you may leave it as is.
I think we'll leave it as is.
Okay. I think we'll call that. A round of action. So the ship is hurtling towards you and will collide in 20 seconds.
Can we see the vessel? Like, if we have the screen up, or is it that the distortion is causing?
You can put it on screen. It's a bit distorted, but you recognize it is a Vulcan civilian ship.
Fascinating. Hurtling towards us. No engines.
And its shields are up, so you can't beam anyone off.
Trek law question. Can you engage a tractor beam on a thing that has shields up?
Yes.
Okay. Engage tractor beam.
Okay. Because your sensor advantage is operational, the tar is no problem targeting the tractor beam. It is, however, moving at impulse speeds. So, I would like a science roll from Lieutenant Casey, please.
He's the one I'd like to do that.
You need a science done. Get your science, boy.
He's the one to do a science on something.
6.
A 6, fantastic. So, you are able to calculate the trajectory of the ship and make sure that the tractor beam intercepted at the right moment, and you're able to slow the ship completely. It ends up probably a kilometer from you, because it takes the conditions of this area are such that your tractor beam isn't working at full efficiency, but it comes to a dead stop.
Nicely done.
Thank you.
Attempt to raise them again.
No response, Captain. There is definitely only one life form on board, Captain.
Any indication of the strength of that life form? Any indication that someone might be hurt aboard and not able to respond?
Faint life signs, probably unconscious.
This is bridge to Ensign Linkovich.
Linkovich here, Captain.
Lock on to the life sign in the vessel and let me know when you can prepare to beam them to sickbay.
Aye, Captain. I have a signal, but I can't get a beam through their shields, Captain.
Thank you, Linkovich. Lieutenant Vance, thoughts about bringing down those shields?
If we've got any indication of the pockets of how this shoal keeps on screwing with our various systems, and we've got a tractor beam on them, I'm honestly wondering if we can just try to tug them
Maneuver
somewhere, which is going to do that. Or we try to bring them closer. And maybe there's always a shuttle option depending upon the nature of their shields.
I'm less keen on sending a shuttle out into this distortion.
I don't like it neither. But yeah, if we can try to drag them somewhere, that's going to affect their shields. It's a small ship. Draining their power source somehow is maybe possible, but technically there's no real way of getting their shields down, which don't include damaging the ship in some way.
At this distance, how precisely can we work out where their shield emitters are? Like how precise a scalpel can we apply to this if it comes to that?
We know surely we've got the specifications of that class exactly on record, so we won't need to find them to scan them. then that'll be a targeting matter, which, theoretically speaking, with the tractor beam in place, makes that considerably easier, because obviously we can... the tractor beams gives us a good idea of its exact space in relation to us, so we should be able to extrapolate a targeting matrix based off the tractor beam's grasp upon the vessel.
Yep, you can target pretty precisely, particularly at this distance. In fact, at this distance, I'm not going to have to take into account the gravitic fold, because the phasers aren't going to be refracted so close to you. So you could do a low power phaser burst. You would only need to disrupt the shields for a second.
Mm-hmm. Can probably target it at a specific point, as long as that's in case you keep it pinned in place, and keeping on a low power especially gives us a bit more leeway in case something goes wrong.
I don't imagine that'll be a problem, Lieutenant.
Strange or Vance? Vance, can you do a... Luke doesn't know the names of all the skills in the system check.
Oh, they're all listed on our character sheet spreadsheet.
Oh, they are, aren't they? That's fantastic.
Yeah, on the front page we'll have all of them.
With a little...
Right, so... Here we go. What's a good one for this? I guess a phaser's roll might actually work.
I have been in the past using phasers for also utilizing ship phasers.
What I'm trying to get at, you can choose your best of...
It's probably going to be phasers.
Yeah, you can, it's not really phasers, but none of them really work. You can give me your best of engineering or science. Yeah.
Wah, wah, wah. I'm a security officer. I have no ranks in engineering or science.
You can, what is your phasers?
4 plus
You
4.
you can add +1 on the basis that this is a tactical question.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm saying roll at +1.
That is a 1.
Okay.
Yay!
You're not really all that familiar. But based on a look at the ship, you reckon you know where the thickest parts of the hull are. So if somehow you did end up putting too much power into the phasers, you know where it's least likely to do any actual breaching.
I thought we had that on record. I thought I could look it up. I was going to space wiki it.
Well, what would be the point of skill checks if everything was on the wiki?
Also, don't forget that something can be on a wiki or on a big list, and you can look at it and go, "Nope, my brain isn't absorbing this information today."
Oh God, is this a 77 or a 76 Chevy Vulcan?
It has some custom work done. It's got spinners on the wheels, so you can't tell.
Those them IDIC hubcaps.
Yeah, it's got IDIC hubcaps. Mm.
A failure, you just look at it and go, "Car."
It's definitely a ship captain. I can
Room.
verify that.
All right, I'm a shooting.
Spaceship go. Brrr.
Do it a shoot. Sorry, that wasn't an in-character
I also
response.
realised, well, that also wasn't an in-character question.
I defy both of that. I think Vance just went, "Sir, do the shoot," and Zal went, "Do the shoot."
Do the shoot.
And the high five.
I mean, what I was going to actually say was technically Talandra hasn't signed off on the shoot it plan.
Yeah, this would definitely be a I'm about to fire on a civilian vessel, sir. Is that something you want me to do?
It looks like you're about to fire on a civilian vessel. Would you like help with that?
Just like
Fuck off, Badgie.
autocomplete. Pew! Badgie.
Obviously, as is standard, Talandra will once again attempt to hail the ship.
But I understand that is not acceptable at this moment.
I think the procedure in this case is you send a communication to them saying, we're going to have to lower your shields with phaser fire, brace yourselves, just on the off chance that they can hear you and not talk back.
Exactly. Talandra is definitely going through all the protocols of I am trying to help you, help us help you. And then we'll say, fire when ready, Lieutenant.
Yes, Commander. All right, let's not fuck this up.
Do me a pew pew.
And of course, she will pass that information down to Linkovich, who can be prepared to beam them as soon as...
Linkovich is ready to go on that really unreassuring transporter interface that Starfleet uses.
That is
presumably Dr. Light's also been,
Dr. Light, assuming it's a site to site straight to sickbay, Dr. Light is ready to go as well.
That is a
Yes.
+6.
Circular saw and jar of leeches. Without Burov, I'm free to unleash my creativity.
Oh, that's this episode.
Oh yeah, other systems affected. Holographic doctor. Slight chance of murderous rage.
Oh, it's like that STO mission with the serial killer hologram.
Oh.
Is that the Jack the Ripper one?
Not explicitly Jack the Ripper, no.
Oh. Oh no, that's an original
Fucking
series
Jack
episode.
the
That's an
fucking
original
Ripper.
series. That's
Everyone
very strange.
loves Jack the Ripper.
It's just a creepy serial killer.
Just a bit of Jack the Ripper.
No one likes Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper was a murderer and an anti-Semite. Those are both bad things to be. That's right. That's the EU crew's woke stance. It's bad to be a murderer and an anti-Semite.
Fucking
Do you remember-
cancel us.
It's bad to be it's bad to just be one of those things. I want to make it clear that's not like
Oh yeah,
it's
like
not like
it's not
logic.
pick one and that's okay. Like
It's not
one at
it's
most.
and is bad or is okay.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
did have an
Bad.
argument with someone once, not argument, but someone who called Jack the Ripper a swerf, and I was like, I don't think he was the F part of that.
To be very clear, then, to be very clear, for the sake of no ambiguity whatsoever, the EU trash crew endorses neither anti-Semitism nor murder.
Or swerf.
Thanks, Sable.
I think we're covered.
Mhm.
Okay, well a 6 is fantastic, so that's fine. You fire the phaser at this sort of the thick part of the hull. The shields go down and you get a response from the transporter room saying the transport is complete and that they have been beamed straight to sickbay. Sickbay to bridge.
Bridget, go ahead.
Our guest wishes to speak to you, Captain.
I'm on my way down.
No further questions.
That's not how we roll and stuff.
That's not how we roll. Absolutely.
Who
There's
asks
something you
follow-up
need to see.
questions? Follow-up questions are for nerds.
Follow-up questions don't create engagement. Fash crew. That's amazing.
Hey, you fash crew.
You fash crew.
I hate
That's-
it.
That's Mirrorverse us. That's brilliant.
Oh my god.
That's amazing. The fash crew.
Well,
That's so easy to brand.
Somebody tell Bree
No!
immediately.
No!
no.
Hey,
no.
hey, Kath, you're an expert. Can you help us with our branding?
Can anyone think of any really cool fashy symbols that can be made cute? Little chibi Reichsadlers and so forth.
I should point out that when I say that, I mean that Kath is an expert in anti-fascist.
Kath, you were recommending Mein Kampf the other day.
Kath,
what's-
you
what's
look at
your-
a lot of dodgy fash stuff
Yeah,
online
what's your favorite? What's your most
For your-
persuasive passage?
for your academia.
Academia
Really
is dangerous.
boring.
So I
Kath, I'm
think
so sorry.
on the revelation that the visitor wants to see Captain Talandra, we shall take a quick break. It's 9 o'clock. It's an excellent time to make a cup of tea or go and avail yourself of your facilities. And we'll be back in 10-15 minutes. Live long and prosper. Star Trek. Let's talk about Star Trek. Let's do some Star Trek. So we will head back to Starbase and see what Captain Athan is up to. We
Guess
get
I
the
gotta
name-
go talk to that cow man.
He has like this do-rag. Yeah, you should talk to the cowman who was once president of the galaxy.
Yeah, but he was really shit president.
It was strange, actually. I think what I found so strange about him was it wasn't quite clear to me what he was president of, because he was president of the Federation, but he seemed to have direct control over Earth, despite the fact that Earth canonically has its own government. Whatever.
I guess Earth in the Federation is like Washington, D.C.
I love how Earth is not recognized as an independent planet. It's just a district of the Sol sector.
It's just the president's backyard.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I want to point out he can't have been that strange because he probably didn't have the right accent.
He didn't. He was not a Scottish space cowman.
It wasn't. I mean, I don't think he's a kind of cowman that's ever been seen. Apparently, his species is grazerite, which I think makes it sound like he actually might be a cowman.
I believe beta canon, which I maintain that as a descriptor, does suggest that they're like big herbivore
Jesus
cowmen.
Christ, look at that.
It's like they didn't stop designing him, isn't it? They just kept adding bits, and then they went, we really should stop. He'll be in the makeup chair for 9 hours. So, Jarosh Inu. He is a former president, as you know, and
Nathan is much more polite than I am.
you just walk in and go, get wrecked, fucker. And just
Cow scrub.
Cow scrub. Oh my god. Yeah, he is surrounded by aides in that way that people tend to accrue sycophants, and even though he's not a president anymore, the sycophants have remained in place.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes, Captain.
Is it still like? Sorry, I was just going to be like, am I going to call him Mr. President? Is that like a courtesy thing?
He is still Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, thank you. I'll attend to that later. Captain, I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Nadari Athan.
Ah, Captain Athan, yes, sir. How can I help?
I have obviously been coming out of a large number of meetings with Admiral Markovitz, but I thought it might be advisable if someone, or rather if I at least try to get a wider idea of the current Romulan situation.
What's the mood?
I think the situation's probably a bit too early for me to want to reach any undue conclusions.
A very shrewd answer, Captain. May I take it you have a mind to a career in the diplomatic?
It's an option ahead of me, sir.
Well, no doubt the good Admiral has made no secret of the fact that we are planning to recommend to the Presidium that they recognize the Senate as sovereign, as we are bound to by treaty, and to allow this internal matter to proceed without our interference. Though it's not with any enthusiasm, you understand, but the Federation simply cannot interfere in the destiny of a sovereign power.
Even with the very real situation that they are arguably an illegal government, that this is a coup d'etat, and one could take the perspective that the rightful government are requesting our assistance.
It is a thorny area, I grant you, but we were bound long ago in the Treaty of Alderaan to recognize the sovereignty of the Senate as representatives of the Romulan people. The Senate have come to a majority decision, which means, I would argue, that it's only a matter of time before their change of government is rendered legal.
I can see that. However, we do have envoys of the former administration and something of a large number of ships entering into the neutral zone and requesting our assistance. What would supporting the Protectorate look like from a practical perspective?
If you mean, do I think this purported government in exile would respond to our recognizing the protectorate with violent action. I don't believe so.
No, but then they haven't obviously made any requests such as asylum, etc., etc., but would we simply close our borders, lock the doors, and wait for the Romulans to do everything immediately right outside in front of us?
I imagine, though it is not in my authority to say definitively, that we would, upon recognizing the protectorate as the government of the Imperium, formally request that they order their ships out of the neutral zone, which they would be initially unable to do because these ships do not recognize their authority. But I think their belief is that with the recognition of the Federation, which, need I remind you, would all but ensure the recognition of the Klingon Empire,
Mm-hmm.
it would probably mean that the continuing committee felt that they had no choice but to bow to the pressure of the international community. These are career soldiers, you understand, Captain. They are not insurrectionists. As soon as they came to the belief that they were in fact the ones on the wrong side of a coup d'etat, no doubt many of them would realize their, how would a Romulan put it, patriotic duty to the Empire and stand down and withdraw into Romulan space, leaving the erstwhile continuing committee with the difficult decision of whether to put themselves at the mercy of the Senate or ask for political asylum in the Federation, which of course we would have to duly consider.
So in fact, if we lock the doors, then we are encouraging by that action the Romulan military to change their minds and no longer throw their weight behind who they currently consider to be the rightful government.
Well, I put it to you, Captain, that a stable Romulan government is in all of our interests. And if the shortest and surest path to stability is recognizing the Senate's authority, which, again, law requires that we do, then it is the job of the Romulan military to fall in line as well.
So you've already pointed out that the position of the Protectorate will soon enough become legal simply because once they assume and maintain and secure sufficient power within the Romulan Imperium, they will get to define the law. The law here is a construct which is being applied by whoever has the authority to be believed.
Yes, I suppose that is true. And of course, any government that comes to power by erstwhile illegitimate means can then render themselves legal. But we signed a treaty in good faith.
Mm-hmm.
With a government long gone, but the state of the Romulan Imperium remains. And the question becomes, therefore, who is that state? Whom do we owe our duty to? Well, I would argue and do that in the case that the continuing committee, which after all is just a branch of government, claims one thing, and the Romulan Senate, which aside from being a branch of government also has recognized sovereignty, claims another. The treaty has answered the dilemma for us, hasn't it?
It has, but you also argued in favour of stability of the Romulan government. 2 coups d'etats in a year is not stability. And in fact emboldens, if a second one is successful after Shinzon's attempt, I fear will embolden the idea that authority within the Romulan Imperium is whoever can hold the biggest guns, rather than the rule of law or legal precedent.
If, on the other hand, we support the Protectorate and all goes as we hope that it would do, the Romulans will undoubtedly eventually close their borders to us once again and put up the veil of secrecy that had defined our relationship. There are those in the galaxy, and I do not say that I'm one of them, but there are those in the galaxy who would say that it can do the rest of us no harm if the Romulans withdraw themselves from international affairs. They have been known to be a bit of an unsettling influence on matters. Their antagonism with the Klingon Empire certainly has not been a boon in our relationship with the Klingons or the Cardassians, for that matter. Stability is a complex thing, and certainly it's possible to have more than one vision of what it looks like. But I would say that our course is defined by our own law and our own law with regards to how we respect our treaties. Let us say, for example, that we decide, or the Presidium decides, to abide by the will of the Continuing Committee. And they return to Romulus with their full fleet and excise the Protectorate from their place and resume their leadership of the Imperium. Well, although I am sure that Proconsul Talara would forgive us for our lapse, because of course it favored her, we would still be in breach of a treaty that has ensured peace between our nations for more than a century.
I'm sure that's something in which a lot of people are going to examine and debate. And honestly, sir, I'm pressing you to try to get to the heart of matters rather than that I strictly disagree with your interpretation. I do fear that actually whatever we choose to do, one could find a legal scholar who could claim the correct interpretation in this particular instance.
I don't doubt that you're right, and I don't doubt the motivations of Markievicz and your comrades, but it is difficult to face the prospect of angering an erstwhile ally in this way. It is difficult to risk, and we risk the ire of the Romulans no matter which decision we make, and it depends largely on who prevails in the end. But I am not I never have been a Starfleet officer. I have never served in that way. But it seems to me, as a diplomat and as a former politician, that we have a duty to preserve peace so that you and your colleagues are not turned once again into warriors. That has always been the policy of the Federation government. But although I do not disagree with all of your points, Captain, and I suspect that Admiral Markievicz and I would understand each other a little more than one might presume, we are bound by higher things. We are bound by, for want of a better word, our honor as a nation to uphold our promises. And the promises we made in the Treaty of Algeron have kept the peace.
I know, unfortunately, we can only go around in circles on that stage, as a counter to that will simply be a different interpretation of the treaty. I don't disagree with your considerations that if the Romulans closed their borders and withdrew, that would have certain potential advantages. However, I'm very mindful of the fact that that is more likely to happen if the Senate, as you say, retains its authority. However, the Federation also has a commitment to peace and reaching out across the stars, across the whole galaxy, if possible. And the Continuing Committee, Proconsul Talora, especially in the aftermath of the Federation assisting in the Shinzon matter and our alliance in the Dominion War, we have the possibility and the potential of a closer relationship with the Romulans than has ever been achieved. Before Shinzon, we already had the closest relationship we've ever had with the Romulans.
Yes, yes, it would be a shame to take a step back from that state. I do agree, and my hope would be, one way or the other, that this upset within the Romulan system does not cause a great deal of ongoing strife. My hope would be that if we were to recognize the provisional protectorate, it might be, and again, this is not within my authority to suggest, but it might be conditional upon them promising amnesty for the continuing committee.
I think that would have to be necessary, otherwise we would be running the risk of turning a blind eye to an atrocity.
If the provisional protectorate believe it is so important to receive Federation recognition, then certainly that recognition will be conditional.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that they will have little choice in the matter but to take us very seriously. Without our recognition, they cannot gain the legitimacy they need to bring the military in line. Without the military in line, the protectorate cannot hold power.
Not to mention that I have no doubt that there are factions within the Klingon Empire who probably think that this sounds like a fine opportunity for them to redress various old grievances with their neighbors.
If the continuing committee... Oh, look, let us not pretend that the ideal scenario is that while we are dithering making a decision, they resolve things for themselves. And that you and I both hope the continuing committee ends up on top. Let us not pretend. I do not wish to deceive you. Of course I wish the continuing committee...
It would be more convenient and our hands would be clean, I understand, sir.
I do not want
Agree.
isolationism to take hold of the Romulan heart once again. We have made strides not only towards cold peace, but towards cultural understanding. For the first time, I understand that Vulcan and Romulan citizens have traveled to each other's worlds since. There have been Romulans who have made pilgrimages to Vulcan. Only a handful and under difficult passport circumstances, but nevertheless, our borders have become more permeable, and I certainly do not wish to undo that. But I must think about a decade from now. I must think about how it would look to the Klingons, who, after all, despite our close relationship, it does hang on the very tenuous thread of a treaty that arguably has already been broken once. If it looks as though we are not sincere in our allegiances, and if this action on our part, supporting the continuing committee, is seen as breaking an allegiance, well, it's not just the Romulans we have to worry about. And the Klingons won't close their borders to us and become shy of communicating. They will simply send warbirds to our outposts and plant Klingon flags on our farthest colonies.
I take your point, sir, though I must say I disagree with your interpretation of Klingon Federation relations, as our relationship has changed vastly since the reinstitution of the Khitomer Accords, and I do not believe that the Klingons would take what already the Federation cannot agree would be a breach of a treaty with the Romulans, and the Klingons would take that as a demonstration of our dishonor and a cue for violence.
Well, of course, it is worth acknowledging that the last two changes of Klingon government were precipitated by a Starfleet officer and Federation citizen. The same Starfleet officer and Federation citizen, now I come to recall, Commander Worf, Ambassador Worf,
Ambassador Worf.
seems to have made himself something of a kingmaker on Kronos, which I think sets a very bad precedent. Certainly we can't get into that habit where all our foreign allies are concerned.
Well, unfortunately, we can't ignore the role of the USS Enterprise in the Shinzon incident, but I digress.
No, but you're right. The Federation has intervened in Romulan affairs. The Federation has already, for example, applied considerable pressure to end the practice of slavery on the planet of Remus. In fact, not to converse on matters that are still delicate, but any further or deeper relationship with Romulus is surely contingent on the end of such barbarousness. And we're making progress. This progress will be ended if the Provisional Protectorate decides that after they've gotten their recognition, they have no use for us anymore. I do understand that. I will think about what you've said, Captain. I do understand that there are pragmatic matters as well as legal technicalities that must be taken into account. I wonder, by any chance, have you met Captain Foster?
Yes, I have. I've spoken quite a lot with Captain Foster, although only a little on this topic.
What's his view?
He and I are of a, I believe, of something of a fairly similar mind. Certainly, he was. He encouraged me to make sure I spoke with, well, not necessarily yourself, but the diplomatic corps. We are certainly of one mind that we would rather that we are not providing the Presidium with wildly conflicting advice and
I agree.
causing conflict of our own.
No, I agree. It will do no good if the Federation and Starfleet are seen to have separate positions. I myself would like unanimity.
Agreed.
I do believe, however, it's unlikely that Admiral Markievicz will be persuaded to our point of view.
We do not all need to agree on what recommendations go to the Presidium, but it would be best if at the very least we understand exactly what both sides are recommending so that we can all make sure that we live with the decision.
Well, there's no sense in pretending that I'm not familiar with controversial decisions and having to live with them. Or indeed that I'm unfamiliar with the concept of taking extraordinary measures to try to preserve peace. Or that I failed. Failure is, of course, as valuable a legacy as a triumph in its own way. But it makes me all the more determined not to misstep here. And that means that I am obliged to consider what you've said and to put it to my colleagues. I do want unanimity, Captain, and I'm not averse to changing my mind on this subject. I just wish for the two parties to enjoy an equal meeting of minds.
No, I agree entirely, sir, and we'll be very happy to make sure that your points are heard in any conversations on my end.
I wonder if you would see if Captain Foster has time for a meeting later, if I can take up perhaps half an hour of his time. He's best placed to take the pulse of the diplomatic corps. And I think, or at least I hope, he would value my input. But do pass on to him what I've said to you, and I will do the same.
Of course, I will, sir, and thank you, sir.
Captain, I appreciate your candor, by the way. These are difficult times. We mustn't be shy of speaking our minds.
Well, not at all, sir. And also, we are all committed in the same fundamental goal here rather than opponents.
Yes. Galactic peace and understanding must
As
be
well
the
as the
watchwords.
Federation's safety.
That above all, yes. Well, I'm sure you have 100 things to do. I know I do.
And, yes, sir. I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you.
Yes. He'll moo off somewhere. Find
I
somewhere
leave
to-
the sad cow man behind.
You can go off
Sad
to
cow George W. Bush.
chew some cud. Okay. All right. So
That helps. He violently convinced me to oppose his opinion.
amazing. He finally elucidated his opinion so much that it's become obviously wrong. well done, Mr. President.
Oh, I was a bit on the edge, but you really tipped me into disagreeing with you.
Good, excellent. Okay, Talandra. You arrive in sickbay. Perhaps unsurprisingly, given that you rescued a Romulan ship, a Vulcan ship, sorry. There's a Vulcan wearing robes you don't often see off of Vulcan. She is dressed like a Varath pilgrim. The Varath pilgrims are a sect that seek a form of enlightenment that they obtain by going to certain sites of significance throughout the alpha and beta quadrants, and they engage in a very strange sort of meditation there where they essentially sort of if you were a human, you might clearly describe it as mind melding with the stars, but they go to sites of astronomical significance and they meditate there. They're particularly irritating because they tend to go places regardless of the diplomatic realities. They are often found crossing borders they ought not to cross, and they claim diplomatic immunity, though no such immunity exists. Fully 3 have been arrested on Kronos within the last 5 years. They would be a national embarrassment to Vulcan society if Vulcans were capable of embarrassment.
Yeah, we're not, but
Are you in command?
I am acting Captain Talandra.
Greetings to you. I am Lashar. May you live long and prosper.
May you.
As I was explaining to your medical device here, I am not injured, which is more than can be said for my communications device.
Were you alone aboard your vessel?
Yes, I was. What is the status of my vessel, please?
Will Talandra have known that before she came?
Yeah,
like, was it destroyed or was it?
no, completely intact.
Your vessel is intact, although certain liberties were taken with your shielding in order to beam you aboard.
Yes, I received your incoming communication. I quite understand. Assuming you did no damage to my vessel, I would like to resume my pilgrimage.
That will be for the engineers to decide once they have looked at the vessel, although you are currently in a very unsafe part of space.
I know precisely where I am, Captain. Yes, I have come here as part of my pilgrimage.
You understand about the graviton field? Shoal?
Yes, I understand about the shoal, as you call it.
If
Being
you
in a
have-
small ship, I had hoped that I would be able to avoid the worst outcomes.
If you have knowledge of it, then while your ship is being mended, I am sure my chief science officer would appreciate your insights.
I am not much of a scientist, Captain. However, I fully permit you to access my ship's data records.
Thank you.
You are not the first Starfleet vessel that I have seen
That was to be my next question.
Yes, there was another.
How long ago?
"16 hours or so."
A vessel like ours?
I am afraid the resolution of my sensors is far too low. Other than receiving a definite Starfleet transponder signal, I could not possibly say.
They did not make contact with you.
I am not sure they were able to receive my communications.
That is unfortunate.
Alas, my ship is not particularly state of the art.
Where was it that you were going?
According to the tenets of Varatha, there are coordinates at one of the stellar Lagrangian points at which I am to conduct my meditation. As far as I am able to tell with my navigational sensors, I did not come very close to this point.
Once we have performed our task here, we will be happy to assist you.
That would be appreciated. I do not wish to take up space on board your ship, Captain, but I think on balance you may be better equipped than I, though of course when we get close to the sacred site, I must insist upon being allowed back upon my ship.
Of course, but I would prefer that you travel in safety rather than alone, until it is necessary.
I understand, Captain, and I appreciate the offer. I will gladly accept your kind hospitality.
Should Dr. Light give you a clean medical bill, then I am happy to assign you some quarters aboard the ship until we are closer.
I will remain in your medical bay until discharged, Captain.
Thank you. You may find me at the bridge if ever you wish to speak further.
As you wish, Captain. Thank you.
Talanta leaves. And will hail Lieutenant Strange.
Yes,
Lieutenant
Commander.
Strange, is there any hope of bringing that ship aboard the Iskandar?
Aboard the Iskandar. How big is this ship compared to the Iskandar? Like, is it about the size of a shuttlecraft?
It's a little bigger than a shuttle. But actually, I think you should think more like the Delta Flyer, or maybe somewhere between that and a runabout.
Oh, probably.
So
Yeah.
what I'm mostly interested in is, does it fit?
Yes.
That's what I was imagining. If it was the same size as the ship, that would have been a mad thing for
No,
Talanta
no.
to
But
say.
I wasn't expecting it to be like the same size as the ship, but even like, a third of the size of the ship. That's
No.
can't make it fit.
It's an autonomous warp-capable craft, but technically so are your shuttles. In spite of being called shuttles, they are completely autonomous.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a bit bigger than a shuttle, but it will certainly fit.
It'll
in your
fit in a
shuttle.
shuttle bay.
For one thing, Intrepid classes have those ridiculous, gigantic shuttle bays and like 2 shuttles, so you've got loads of room.
Two
Shuttles
shuttles.
into
So
coverage
many
somewhere.
shuttles.
And you've got that weird other ship that Voyager never used.
We do.
The
We do
Bagoas.
have the Bagoas.
Bagoas!
I believe that's what it got called. That's amazing.
But yes, Strange will relay to Talanda that yes, it can be brought aboard, and will go and make arrangements to get it brought into a shuttle bay.
Once it is deemed safe to do so, I will have you and Lieutenant Casey access the ship's full sensor records and manifests. I believe they may have even a little bit of information about the last known location of the Berenike.
Very good. Just checking, we do have permission from the ship owner to access to those records?
We do, and you have my permission to contact sickbay if you reach any security issues.
Understood, Commander.
She returns to the bridge.
So I'm just poodles off to go get on with some work.
So on the bridge, you receive the report that the shoal has passed for the time being, so you can resume your course if you wish.
16 hours ago, our guest believed that they took scans of a Starfleet vessel. It is possible that this is not the Berenike, but it is a assumption that we have going forward. Lieutenant Strange and Lieutenant Casey are currently working on accessing the sensor records. This means that within 16 hours, the Berenike will have been within scanning range of this vessel's most acceptable scanner radius. She says that the ship was not hailable, whether that was a fault on her end or the Berenike's end is uncertain as of yet.
What's she doing out here?
She is a pilgrim. She
Where?
was coming to meditate at a site of astrometric importance. They are a curious part of Vulcan culture.
All right. You know better than me.
I have requested that she remain on board the ship while we look for the Berenike, but once we approach a part of space that she deems important, she will have her ship returned to her and will be let to go free.
Of course, no. I'm glad we can render assistance, but once she's all ship shape and the ship shape and we got the information we need, might as well let it go on our way.
Captain, this is Tarek.
Listen,
I'm just confirming now, but I believe I'm picking up a Starfleet transponder signal. 3 AU away, or approximately, heading 441, correction, 451 Mark 27.
is it possible to
Correction,
track their heading?
451 Mark 37. Yes, Captain, I'm trying to compensate now.
Do your best. Do not get sucked into their wake.
It is a stationary signal, Captain.
Oh.
Ah,
It
Then-
is not far from the projected course of the Berenike.
Well, I guess we're giving this lady a little bit of a lift.
boost scans and attempt to hail as soon as you're within hailing distance.
Aye, Captain. We are approximately 5 hours away at maximum impulse. We will not be within EM communications range for quite some time.
Do your best.
Aye, Captain. Strange and Casey.
Nerd Squad.
Nerd Squad shall obey. It's not quite a romantic picnic.
It's their equivalent of a romantic.
I mean, there are a few things less romantic than a Vulcan shuttlecraft, to be honest.
I think what makes it a romantic picnic is whoever arrives second has brought the tea,
Brought the tea, yeah, absolutely.
so they can stand there being like, "Oh yeah, it's a shuttle bay."
That's better than when Casey actually tried to take Strange for a romantic picnic. So, you know.
Just giving it up. I'm
Sable,
bad
can we just say, why is it that you're always the one overseeing the sad boys' romantic picnics?
Yeah.
Is there a strange man from Brooklyn on board this Vulcan craft?
All I got to do was oversee their romantic rock fight.
I mean, there was that time I killed them off. Did I kill both of them off?
Yeah,
No.
yeah, so
They were holding hands.
Oh, they were holding hands.
yeah,
That's
that
right.
was
They
it.
were overlooking the weird thing, and they got vlumped.
And then
yeah.
It meant that-
yeah.
It meant that what you actually gave them was that romantic end of the world sort of moment, but they survived it. So
And also, no one knows that happened because
we don't
Athan
remember
didn't see
it.
Yeah, they don't remember it, and Athan didn't see it. So
No one
they
knows.
felt it. They felt
Q
it in
knows,
their souls.
probably.
That's true. Actually, Q knows it happened. I think Athan might remember it happened. That's how
She
memory-
didn't
Athan
see
wasn't
it.
there.
no, she was out of comms contact.
Oh, that's right.
It wasn't there.
So,
Anyway.
Casey, you access the shuttle. There's no problem. There's no security on this at all. This is the most civilian thing you've ever encountered. The password is probably guessed or something like that. So you can access the shuttle, no problem. Yeah, it's little more than a glorified shuttle. It's not even as well equipped as a runabout. It has rudimentary weapons suitable for things like blasting your way out of an unexpected asteroid situation, but nothing that would stand up against an actual vessel. Unfortunately, the same is true for its shields. It can block a transporter beam and probably stop a rock bouncing particularly hard against it, but actual weapons fire would be the end of this ship. Unless you were as careful as Lieutenant Vance, of course, and deliberately trying not to pew pew do damage. So you both set about your inspection of the ship. Casey, can I get a science or an ops roll, whichever you prefer, to access the data logs?
I will choose science because that's my highest stat by far. And that
You're
is
the
a
science
3.
boy.
A 3, okay. Well, fortunately, because it's a Vulcan vessel, it's automatically very compatible with your systems. You can pretty much just set it to upload onto the Iskandar systems. There's actually a good amount of data on here. The sensor resolution's quite low, but there's an awful lot of it. Because it's quite a slow ship, it's actually been gathering days and days of data from the looks of it.
Great.
And Lieutenant Strange, would you make me an engineering roll to give it a once-over and make sure that it's safe for flight?
Yep. 7.
7, right. There's a bit of fairly trivial damage to the hull where the phaser struck it, but none of the armor panels need replacing. They can simply be repaired with a baryon modulator. That'll do it. I don't know the names of anything, but a baryon modulator will certainly fix this problem.
It'll buff out.
It's the equivalent of buffing it out, but with a thing that goes. But you roll a 7. So while you're inspecting the electrical panels within the EPS panels within the ship, you spot something that you sort of at first your mind glosses over because you see it a few times a day. But then, as you're closing the panel, you go, wait a moment. What do I mean I see this a few times a day? And you put the panel cover down and you see that this panel has actually undergone recent repairs with Starfleet components. Yeah, these are standard ODN components used as part of the EPS regulation system, and they are definitely Starfleet. If you look they've got that little 4 nanometer Starfleet logo carved onto them. I don't know how you do a Starfleet logo in 4 nanometers, but you can try if you like.
I'm pretty sure that's been done.
Probably. But yeah, these are Starfleet components. These are, according to the issue number, they've been manufactured within the past 6 months, and with a 7, I think you can tell that based on the way the system's compensated around them, they've been installed within the last 48 hours.
You said I've got the issue number. Can I go looking up, like, who issued these parts? Who to? Where do parts come from?
Interesting.
How parts get in Vulcan ship?
Okay. Make me an engineering check.
Good boy. Look into the secret Romulan.
Strange is a good boy and has rolled a 6.
Oh Jesus. Okay, fine. So the information I was going to give on like a 2 to 3 was, yeah, these are definitely ones that are used on smaller Starfleet ships, Nova-class, Intrepid-class. Yeah, no. This batch was issued to the USS Berenike
I am shocked.
at Starbase 34 approximately 6 months ago.
Right. Okay. One other question.
Mm-hmm.
Are these the kinds of parts that you'd usually have spares of lying around?
Oh yeah, and these are
It's just standard, like.
and you can tell because this is actually a relatively complex interface. These have been installed by a Starfleet engineer.
Okay.
These haven't been bodged together, and these aren't stolen parts. I mean, they might be stolen parts, but they have been.
If they were stolen, then an engineer also got stolen.
If they're stolen, they've been competently installed according to the regulation way of installing them. That you can probably bet. In fact, you can check with Casey's help the ship's inventory. The ship has almost nothing in the way of spare parts with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's colossally irresponsible. There are some spare components for some of the EPS systems, and there are some spare components for the power relays for the shield system and the life support system, but there's nothing for something as specific as ODN relays in the EPS shunt. That's so ridiculous.
Okay.
It's bad preparation. Like, you should absolutely, you could bring a case of these with you. They take up no space. They're smaller than an SD card. But yeah, these are Starfleet issue. These are USS Berenike issue.
Okay. Let's see, is Strange going to pass this on to Talandra just yet? I think. What's Casey up to at the minute?
He, if not immediately assisting with that, will be just downloading data. I think he's doing it like he's currently comparing course data from this shuttle to anticipated courses that we might go to go see the Berenike or whatever dwells within there. So he's just like absorbing data, so he's lost at the moment.
Oh, okay.
He's doing his little data devour.
Make me an ops check, Casey.
No.
You morally refuse.
Shan't.
It's bad. Let's see how bad. I got a -2 on that.
-2.
Ooh.
Okay. So you can't see any correlation between the shuttle's course and the Berenike's planned course.
What was your
Well, looking at that and looking at those parts over there, that says this shuttle never came across the Berenike. That absolutely does say the shuttle came across the Berenike, because those parts are from it.
I mean, I could be wrong. The sensor array on this shuttle isn't particularly sophisticated. It sounds like you have something quite solid in terms of a discovery.
I feel like we should probably ask whoever's ship this is whether they just saw the Berenike on sensors or whether they actually, made contact with the Berenike.
Yes, I think so too. They're in sick bay, are they not?
They are, yes. Is this better coming via us or via Talandra? Might be best via the commander.
Particularly if it's another Romulan, yes, possibly.
Did you meet another Romulan?
They're on to
No,
you, Talandra.
Vulcan.
Talandra, they're on to you. Run. Get the emergency parachute. I'm sure that'll help in space.
Fetch me the Talshia!
You are the
Talandra.
Talshia.
Ooh. Yes, as another Vulcan, it might be best coming from her.
You are Handforth Parish Council. Athan hasn't asked what side Jackie Weaver is on in the Great Romulan Schism.
I'm pretty sure Commander Talandra has the authority here. And I'm pretty sure if anybody here has read the standing orders, it's going to be Commander Talandra.
That is true, actually. Yeah,
I have read the standing orders. I do have authority here, and you're all banned from the Zoom meeting.
Well, bye, folks.
That's us told.
Yes.
I apologise to our American viewers.
Surely this meme is international by now.
I don't know. I don't apologise. If you are an American watching this right now and you're confused,
Google Handforth Parish Council.
That is your problem. We are all all Handforth Parish Council now.
This episode is so firmly dated just by the two very specific meme references we've made.
Right.
If you are watching this episode on YouTube in the future, I want you to go at @UCrew on Twitter and just ask us what we were thinking.
We
at
won't
this
remember
point.
this by then. We'll have forgotten about the meme.
YouTube will still remember this by then. Go onto YouTube, whether you're in the future or America, and look up Handforth Parish Council.
If you're one of two potential outcomes in the future or America.
If you're in future America.
If you're a future American, jog on.
If you're in future America, go to one of the few remaining places that has electricity and see if you can log on to what we used to call the internet.
We shouldn't laugh. The UK got thunderdomed fairly early.
I don't know why I'm laughing. Like, our entire country won't be a dystopian arcology within 5 years.
Anyway.
Anyway.
We tell Talandra.
Let's go tell Space Mom.
Yeah.
Another Romulan.
Let's go tell the Romulan.
I like the idea that the scene begins though with her just being like, the Baranaki. Is that standard?
There's certainly, parts that you'd have spares of, and frankly, it's surprising that the shuttle didn't have its own spares, because it's the sort of thing that is a standard part to wear out, so you take some with you. But these are definitely parts that have come from the USS Berenike. That's who they were issued to about 6 months ago. So it seems likely that at some point within the last, I'd say about 48 hours, direct contact was made with the Berenike by our passenger.
When was the last... Luke, when was the last report from the Berenike?
By now, something like 80-something hours ago.
48 hours, are you certain?
Yes.
The last time the Berenike made a report to Starfleet was approximately 80 hours ago.
Okay, so we've got something a little more narrowed down than the Berenike's last reported location, potentially.
But also, why should the Berenike not make contact with Starfleet, but give a quantity of its spare parts to a passing Vulcan vessel?
It could be something as simple as maybe the comms array was down on the Berenike.
Yeah, Izzy, tell me the timeline. That would be the time that they were in comm silence.
Yeah. Sorry, am I missing something? Because it feels to me like while they were in comm silence, like they didn't try and leave the field to make contact with Starfleet.
That is the mystery you are trying to solve.
Yes, I believed that was correct. That wasn't the bit I was hung up on.
There's nothing strange about the comm silence part.
No,
that's mandatory.
No, but the thing I was worried about was that they didn't then go and get in touch, but they did give their parts to some rando vessel. Like that's the bit that leads me to go, huh, curious.
That is curious.
Also, some rando vessel whose captain did not mention taking on any fucking parts.
That was my next point. Just need to re-Vulcan. Furthermore, she did not mention having had contact with the Baraniki.
Oh.
And I see no reason why she should lie.
Did she say she hadn't had any contact with the Baraniki, or did the subject just not arise?
She said that she had been aware of a Starfleet vessel, but had not been able to make contact with it.
Ah. Right.
To land to Lieutenant Vance.
Vance here.
Could I speak with you in my ready room, please?
I'm away. Boop-a-doop-a-doo.
And Lieutenant Casey, did you discover anything?
My data actually works in the contrary to what we've discovered, that the shuttle actually went nowhere near the Baranaki, but I'm not confident in its accuracy. The sensor array was very weak on the shuttle itself, so... Or... I was about to begin to rampantly speculate. Nothing I'm confident in.
Lieutenant Vance.
Yeah, sorry.
You've
I was
come
just
from
like,
the
I'm
bridge.
here. Yeah.
You didn't go. Lieutenant. There
Commander?
is potentially an issue aboard the ship. The vessel that we took on board. Well, I shall let Lieutenant Strange give you the report.
So it seems that our Vulcan passenger did in fact make direct contact with the USS Berenike at some point within the last 48 hours, by my estimates. There have been quite recent repairs made on the shuttlecraft using spare parts that have come from the USS Berenike.
Which they made absolutely no mention
Apparently
of.
not.
To the contrary, she even stated that she had been aware of the Baraniki but had not made contact. She did not say the Baraniki, but had been aware of a Starfleet vessel but had not made contact.
First Lieutenant Zal, could you discreetly put a security detail on sickbay and just keep eyes on our guests? Don't do anything forthright just yet.
Yes, Lieutenant.
Okay. Why would Vulcan lie about that? Vulcan Pilgrim.
It is inconceivable to me. My people are not incapable of dishonesty, but to be dishonest about such a minor point that would have brought no suspicion on her.
Yeah. So,
As a Federation citizen, if she had indicated contact had been made, I would not have questioned further.
Certainly there's no good reason to cover it up, unless obviously not wanting us to pay any more attention to her and her flight route and what she's been up to while she's been out here. So that sounds like another conversation, I guess, Commander.
I believe so. However, Vance, I'm interested in your thoughts of how best to approach this.
Well, right now a lot of this is massively skewed because, assuming she has already been lying to us, she is already covering something up, unless something completely outrageous is going on. At which case, I think a direct approach is going to be necessary. Certainly, I would want you there, Commander, because, you know, I'm not saying I'm going to be bamboozled if she tries to invoke some sort of Vulcan pilgrimage hoo-ha, which I don't know anything about. I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just mean that she might try to cover up her things with inaccurate information, which I would not be able to refute.
It is still very perplexing to me that she should do that to begin with, but of course, if you wish to question her, I will be there to support you.
I think a direct approach. So far, we have no evidence to suggest that she is anything other than a Federation citizen who has withheld information from us. Now, that has some very serious security implications in the context, but I don't think we have grounds to do anything other than go, ma'am, we found this out. Could you please explain yourself?
She was willing to remain aboard the ship and until we had completed our mission. She made no attempt to leave. It concerns me, therefore, that should we make contact with the Baraniki, they would verify that she had made contact with them, thereby exposing her lie.
Yes, but if she pushed to leave, we might have become more suspicious. The odds of us picking up this trail so nearby are actually, that was not in our favor. That was probably a safer gamble. If I was trying to get off, I would cooperate, assume that Starfleet would probably want to get me off their ship as quickly as possible, rather than press. I was going to say, unless it suits her to be. What was physically wrong with her? Why was she unconscious?
Luke, did we was
Did
it
we ask
was it
that
just
question?
I didn't ask that question because I'm a fool. Was it just that had her ship taken damage? Had she
Ship has taken no damage and she did not appear injured herself, no.
Did we kidnap her while she was having a nap? Kidnapped her with lasers.
Yeah, that was a
While she
grouchy
having
Vulcan. That was a Vulcan being nap grouchy.
I wasn't sure if I should have been suspicious when you're like, I ran to the Baranaki 16 hours ago or so. Or so? You're a fucking Vulcan, lady!
Yes, my internal chronometer would work better if you hadn't woken me the fuck up from my nap.
It's true. It's true.
I need my beauty sleep, goddammit.
All Vulcans do need our beauty sleep. It is part of the teachings, sir.
That's how you get Romulans, is Vulcans missing their beauty sleep.
So you're saying that Romulans are just ugly Vulcans?
Yeah.
That's true.
I guess we want to talk to Light.
We probably do want to talk to Light. Let's summon him here. He is a hologram.
Can I do that to the
Yes.
EMH?
Yeah,
Yes.
we've got shipwide emitters.
Dr. Light, the captain's ready room, please.
One moment, please, Captain. Dr. Light appears. Yes, Captain.
Doctor. Regarding our guest aboard the ship, what was it that you found was wrong with her?
I have nothing to report that should present a security concern, Captain.
Our security concerns are... Sorry, Commander.
No, you go on.
Our security concerns are that she has been misleading us as to exactly what happened to her and why she's here. She was beamed aboard on the assumption that she was injured, considering her ship was on a collision course with us. But we're not sure what exactly was afflicting her.
Of course, Lashar is a Federation citizen. Naturally, I'm bound by confidentiality. As I say, I detected nothing that should present a security or safety concern to the crew, Captain.
Of course.
Can you confirm for me, however, Doctor, was she unconscious when she was beamed into sickbay?
She was beamed into sickbay in a meditative state, Captain.
Ah. Nevertheless, she was on a collision course. The captain says to Vance, I'm aware that I'm looking at windows. It's hard to tell. Thank you, Dr. Light. If you can ensure that she does not leave sickbay for the time being.
Certainly, Captain. Will that be all?
Yes, thank you, Doctor.
He vanishes.
I feel the lateral thinking in this situation would have been considerably easier with Dr. Burov.
The Doctor is experiencing much required rest and relaxation.
Oh, I know.
You want to get yourself one of those EMHs. They'll drop doctor-patient confidentiality at the drop of a hat just to move the plot forward. Captain Janeway comes in and goes, what's wrong with this patient? Acute syphilis, Captain. Not that I'm going to break doctor-patient confidentiality.
But it's gross.
There is a real context which Dr. Light was not being forthcoming on.
There's one point where the doctor morally objects to a medical procedure and says, I can't do it. And Captain Janeway says, I can. And the doctor goes, fair enough. I suppose I can't stop you doing it or lock you out of the med bay systems, which I have intuitive access to, being one of them. But I suppose my morals only go so far. And then Captain Janeway murdered someone. That happened.
Yeah, she did.
That was a season 1 episode.
She murdered someone
crimes.
begging for their life.
So many crimes.
I have a lot to look forward to when I get around to watching Voyager.
He was standing on the bridge. He was standing on the bridge and ordered to go to sickbay to be executed. And he turned to the bridge crew of the Starship Voyager and begged them. He said, Tom, please stop this. This is wrong. And they all just turned back to their stations.
Listen, we can't be this Star Trek show. We can't be this Star Trek show if we talk about that fucking episode.
Voyager. Yes, which is why in this scene, Dr. Light went, I can't tell you because of doctor-patient confidentiality. And Talandra went, no, I understand completely.
That is the law, isn't it?
Could you answer this one question that we would know just from being there? Of course you can. Thank you very much. That will be all.
Yes, but we've not got to the next scene where Talandra immediately goes down to sickbay and just, we have a Vulcan fight in the sickbay.
My concern then raises with the question, as you say, if she probably did not come here by accident if she has been lying to us. So why would the Vulcan meditative state isn't going to mean that she's not going to notice an alert? Was there anything on her ship which would indicate that it wouldn't give off the normal alert warnings that she was on a collision course? Lieutenant Strange.
No, every system on our ship seemed to be in perfect working order aside from the immediately done repairs.
Would the
recently done repairs
circumstances of the shoal that we're in have her sensors should have still have at least been able to have detected us
at that kind of range? I would imagine so.
Commander,
I can see why she might have stumbled across us and had to brake quite hard.
But it got past that point, you would say.
Correct, yes.
Commander, I'm assuming a meditative state would not have made her incapable of noticing such a alert warning from her own ship systems.
No. And if I remember correctly, she mentioned being aware of our hails.
Then I have to reach then the conclusion that she has not reached, or at least the supposition that she is not on this ship by accident, that she has in fact manufactured the situation to be aboard our ship, which would potentially explain why she has not taken the opportunity to leave this ship.
Do you believe, Lieutenant, that we should escalate this to a security risk?
At the present time, I am not prepared to. I have eyes on her, which I'm assuming is probably more than anyone else has had for depending on whatever happened with her and the Baraniki. But I'm highly suspicious, and I believe that she has not just lied about her encounter with Baraniki, but has lied about the circumstance by which she's come to be aboard this ship. She is here for a purpose. We do not know what that purpose is. I would not allow her to go anywhere unescorted at present.
Understood. Then, Lieutenant Casey, Lieutenant Strange, I would continue to inspect her vessel.
Mhm.
Perhaps take a security crew if you feel it necessary.
I would be curious, considering she obviously needed repairs done, with the assistance or at least the utilization of components from the Baraniki. What the hell happened to that ship that she needed repairs?
A good line of inquiry.
Yes, that's possibly worth looking at. Possibly whether our ship even did need repairs, or whether that was sabotage on her part to get in contact with the Baraniki.
Indeed, and some convenient looting. Commander, I would probably still suggest that you continue to engage her, at least as the next step. I'm not exactly a proponent of good cop, bad cop, but for the moment, so long as we have some security nearby and not rattling her, it might be advantageous if we don't, overplay our hand. We
Quite
have,
so.
if by all means, ask questions, I would suggest, about what we found out, but she's a Federation citizen, and we're looking for a missing ship, and could you please explain this?
Yes, very well, I suppose I must.
And we can escalate it from there. Once you start popping out accusations and I start waving my authority around as Chief of Security, you can't put the Chief of Security ketchup back in the Chief of Security ketchup jar.
Yeah, that's ketchup jar. What's a ketchup jar, man?
De-escalating is harder than taking it slow and escalating later.
I understood your metaphor, Lieutenant.
Ketchup comes in glass jars.
More like a bottle, I'd say, but yes.
Yeah, like bottles.
No, I did follow. I
wasn't sure if you have ketchup on Vulcan.
No, we don't. But I did school on Earth.
Yeah.
So, let's. I thought you were going to say you can't put the security horse back in the security stable. So you went in a completely different direction.
You put the security ketchup.
Not everything I do is cowboy.
Security ketchup, yeah.
Well, it
Goes in the security jar. That's what ketchup comes in.
Let's go to sickbay, shall we? And Talandra.
Yes, I think we should all go to sickbay.
Listen, I'm just happy to set up this Vulcan rumble rather than be the one to wade in.
Oh, God.
Vulcan Bowl.
Vulcan Bowl.
Captain. Captain.
Talandra will go to sickbay.
Captain, may I ask why your medical hologram has not permitted me to leave sickbay?
I requested that you I've completely forgotten her name already.
Lashar.
I requested, Lashar, that you remain. I have a few questions.
Of course.
I believe when we spoke, I had some questions about whether you had seen another Starfleet vessel, the other Starfleet vessel that you saw in the shoal.
Yes, Captain.
And you said to me that you had been aware of a ship but had not made contact with it.
I recall, Captain.
Could you therefore explain to me how parts of the ship that we are looking for were found in your vessel?
Yes, Captain. I had docked with the USS Baraniki to undertake necessary repairs.
And yet, this was the vessel that we are looking for currently.
I do not know what mission you are on, Captain.
But you did make contact with the Baraniki within the last 2 days.
Yes, Captain, and... Yes, Captain, and At the request of the captain of that vessel, I kept that information from you.
Given that that vessel is currently the subject of great interest to this ship, I would appreciate hearing any information you have about its location.
I don't believe that I am any more aware of its location than you are, though you are more than welcome to check my navigational logs. I do understand that the security officer of the Berenike has redacted some of my logs, however, but I'm sure you will be able to come up with some way of unredacting them for your own purposes. I gave them full access to my computer, and they did tell me there were some security concerns. I, of course, allowed them to do as they please. They're Starfleet officers, after all.
Understood. Then, with your permission, I believe the ship's chief of security has some questions for you.
I quite understand.
Perhaps this would be a discussion better had in the security office.
Of course, Captain.
Oh, you're not going to suplex her.
I believe I cross-examined her quite excellently.
That's...
What were
She's
you
not gonna-
expecting?
What
She's
did you
not
think
gonna-
Vulcan Ball was? Oh.
She's not going to suplex her in sick bay. There's still plenty of time for her to be suplexed.
So I guess you escort her to the security office.
While walking to the security office, Talandra is going to have a few questions about the site she's going to, and like Talandra is a religious Vulcan girl. She's going to have more knowledge about this than I do. Like, I'm not looking to like interrogate her about the site of her meditation, but like Talandra is genuinely interested and is now like just trying to get her to talk.
It is speculated by my order that the Raxikos star is one of several stars that is whose current gravitic properties are the result of an ancient cataclysm. It is believed that the barrier between the material world and the psychic world are weaker there, and therefore through meditation we can gain greater intuitive access to the truth of the galaxy. I am aware that my order is regarded as having some fringe beliefs, but nevertheless, I have found that although I am relatively new to this particular pilgrimage, I have attained a good deal of satisfaction from pursuing it.
It's a fascinating practice, and meditation of any sort can help calm a chaotic mind.
Yes, though it is a rather different variety of meditation than that which I, or indeed you, I suspect, are used to, and I am still a student of the method.
We must all begin our education somewhere. After you.
Of course.
Lieutenant Vance has been practicing his bad cop lean.
Good afternoon, Lieutenant.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Please have a seat. Is there anything I can get you to be more comfortable?
I do not believe so, no, Lieutenant. Thank you.
Very good.
Lieutenant Vance, after the conversation we have had, I don't know why her name keeps falling out of my head.
No, I don't know what a fucking name is. I'm going to write
Lashar.
Lashar. It's 2 syllables. It's a very simple name.
It's barely even 2 syllables, to be honest.
Lashar claims I'm dying. Lashar claims that her records were redacted by the security chief of the Berenike. And I believe one security chief to another, this would be better handled by you.
Oh, well, no, I understand. I'll happily try to make sure we can get to the bottom of this without any... Yeah.
I will not take any action to stop you, nor do I have sufficient understanding of the ship's systems in order to prevent you from doing so. But I feel I have a moral duty to say that it was felt at the time that this redaction was entirely necessary.
I would like to hear your account of your encounter with the Baraniki and the situation. We're on a mission of mercy, ma'am.
I would certainly prefer to engage with you in a spirit of truthfulness. The dishonesty I had been obliged to present did create a certain discomfort, yes.
And I can assure you, whilst I have no doubt that the crew of the Baraniki have acted in goodwill, we have a duty to make sure that they are safe and to bring back word of their safety.
Yes, of course. In the pursuit of my pilgrimage, I ran across a phenomenon I believe your captain has referred to as a shoal.
Mm-hmm.
Unexpectedly, since I was under the mistaken impression that the relatively small size of my warp field would not catch on the gravitic phenomenon. I managed to evade it to the significant cost that my ship's power systems were damaged. I was more or less adrift. I managed to, through interfacing with my computer, patch power through to my communication system, made contact with a starship, which transpired to be the Federation starship Baraniki. They, as you have done, tracked me into their shuttle bay. I explained the purpose of my visit. They advised me to leave the system. In fact, they had plans themselves to leave the system and reassume contact with Starfleet Command. I declined, correctly under the impression that Captain Redan would be unable to legally insist that I leave the system. And repairs were made, and I resumed my course. And indeed, the last time I made contact with them was approximately 16 hours ago, when our two vessels parted ways. They proceeded wherever it was they were proceeding, and I proceeded inwards towards the Raxicos star.
Then what's the matter of redaction? What's the matter of secrecy?
To that I cannot answer. I made no inquiries as to their mission, but it seemed very clear to me that Captain Redan wished for my ship not to contain any records of their exact movements. He asked if I could redact my records, and I explained that I am not conversant in those sorts of things, and so he set his security chief to doing so.
So
But I do not know what it was that he was concealing, because of course, as a civilian, why would I know?
Why indeed? Sorry, I must have misunderstood you. I thought you mentioned at the beginning that you understood and were sympathetic to the need for the redaction.
Oh, I only meant because Captain Redan went to some effort to ensure it, I did not want his efforts to be trivially undone, though, of course, you are also Starfleet officers and may perfectly well be privy to whatever secrets he was concealing. Bearing in mind that this system borders the Romulan neutral zone, I imagine his concern was more that my ship not be captured by the Romulans.
Of course. I hope you're feeling much better, Mr. Shara, after word that you were beamed aboard to our sick bay.
I was thankfully uninjured.
But you lost control of your ship?
It does seem that way, though I'm afraid I was not aware of having done so.
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
The particular religious order to which I belong practices a variety of meditation called the Path of Inward Perfection. This entails deliberate sensory deprivation, and unfortunately it is a practice with which I am still a novice. For example, I have had to ask my ship's computer to disable several alert functions. I was not able to persuade it to disable the emergency communications channels, which is why I was awoken from my meditation by your urgent hails.
Well, I might possibly recommend that you don't, in future, turn off the collision alert.
I believed at the time that I calculated that the greater good was ensuring that the purpose of my journey was made more likely, though I understand that perhaps the autopilot on my rather unsophisticated craft was not to be relied upon.
Yes, and I mean, we're not here to deal with interstellar traffic, but I might advise you for the safety of others in the future if you take into account such navigational risks.
Had I thought for a moment that I was placing someone else at risk, I would not have done so. Your appearance was not something my senses had detected.
I agree that the odds of you accidentally ending up on a collision course with our ship is literally astronomical. But
Indeed.
mhm.
Nevertheless, I apologize if I caused any damage to your vessel.
I believe, unfortunately, the damage was to yours, but a less sophisticated ship than ours might have been in a bit of a pickle. But I understand that such spiritual practices and the harsh realities of interstellar travel are going to have a few. You need to iron some things out sometimes.
Yes.
Very well. I think that's reassured me of everything. We're going to do what we can to take a look at the navigational information that was redacted from your ship. I may have some further questions, but we'll have to see what I find out first. Thank you very much for your cooperation.
Of course, I will do my best to answer as best I can. Captain, have quarters been assigned to me?
Yes, they have. Lieutenant Zal will escort you to them.
Oh, I'm also very sorry, ma'am. Under the circumstances of our mission and dealing with a missing ship, you, as a non-member of the crew, should have a security escort at all times if leaving your quarters. We have redouble security protocols at present.
I quite understand, Lieutenant. I have no intention of leaving my quarters unless I'm summoned somewhere.
Of course.
I appreciate the need to maintain security.
Thank you very much.
Please, this way. I'll show you to your quarters.
Vance will give his biggest, dumbest, amiable smile insofar as it's any worth playing the hick to a Vulcan.
Lashar will raise her biggest, dumbest, most amiable eyebrow and sweep out of the room.
I was already doing that. I like her. I hope she's not a secret Romulan.
She's a fucking secret Romulan.
Of course she's a secret Romulan. We're near the fucking neutral zone.
It's too obvious.
Interesting.
No, I think she might be a defecting Vulcan. That's my theory.
Fuck off. Respectfully, Lieutenant Vance, go fuck yourself.
Is that an order?
Yes.
So, well, I was wondering if I could end this session on a big cliffhanger, but I don't think I can get to a big cliffhanger.
I shoot Lieutenant Vance.
That's pretty big.
Sounds like, oh shit, where's my wallet? Back on the stand.
I think the thing this episode ends on is that thing where you do a slow zoom on the character that's under suspicion, but nothing changes at all. She doesn't go, "Mwahaha." It's just like, it's just completely impassive, and she's like, well, this is where I am now. Okay.
I mean, maybe it's like, oh, that we're moving through space with the implication that soon, out there, soon, is the Baranike.
Yeah, I think possibly the
Baranike.
I think possibly the end reveal is that Talandra returns to the bridge, and Tarek reveals that the Baranike is within visual sensor range. Talandra says on screen, and it just cuts to black. Executive producer Rick Berman.
Oh.
And everyone cringes. No one wants that.
Sorry.
We're in a post-Berman era.
Executive producer, me.
Directed by.
It just says me, by the way.
Jonathan
Like, it doesn't say
Frakes.
executive producer Izzy yet. It's executive
me.
producer
Oh,
me.
Me.
What name should we put down for executive producer? Oh, me. If you're sure. Yeah. So yes, that is the end of part 1 of Occam's Razor.
Oh, God.
Secret Romulan.
I thought the
Secret
politics
Romulan.
I thought the politics of peace had like weighty diplomatic issues, and now I'm just like,
I think the lesson here is either really do or really, really don't dump me and Luke into a scene where we can play very well-informed characters with opinions which we can extrapolate from our knowledge of Trek lore. Also, apparently, spoilers for Nemesis everywhere, and apparently, home front in parts 1 and 2 unexpectedly.
I've accepted my fate here. For
Also, we're only spoiling you for Nemesis.
Look, Nemesis came out in 2002. At a certain point, I don't feel too bad about it.
Yeah.
Actually, we haven't spoiled that much about Nemesis, have we?
Not any. We've spoiled what happens in the opening scene.
Literally the opening scene,
and
yeah.
the bad guy doesn't win.
Yeah.
How
So
dare you
all of
spoil all of that.
all of Western fiction has just been spoiled.
What? And the Enterprise has something to do with it.
And it's something to do with the Enterprise. Yeah, that's
the Enterprise is
Yeah,
at it again.
The goal.
pretty creepy situation. And Homefront I was pretty vague about, but yeah, no. Look, I like those conversations because the thing about Jarish Inyu is I despise the guy, but I wanted to kind of present him as someone who has this kind of he carries himself like he's some sort of political grandee, when in real life, just like George Bush, everyone wishes he'd rather just fuck off and leave everyone else alone.
I can't lie, that was actually exactly the vibe I got. As he's like, yes, I've been around and I know the weight of failure and all the importance, but here are my incredibly conservative, safe opinions. Because honestly, I thought it was a bit like, do we really need to try to, play Kingmaker in the Romulans? We've got a lot of shit going on in other places. I don't really care that much about Romulans, like on my personal priority list. Or, fuck this guy. God, he's everything I hate about Federation politics.
Yeah.
And I'd be an awful hypocrite to say anything else.
Yeah,
I can see why Kantos is not in this episode, because either they'd be on the diplomat side, in which case that wouldn't go well, or they'd be on the ship, in which case they'd try and flirt with the Vulcan, and that wouldn't go well. Vulcan, and that wouldn't go well.
God, Athan would totally try to be like, are they a secret Romulan? Well, Lieutenant Kantos, just go make sure our guest is comfortable. Kantos fucks them. They're probably not a Vulcan.
Okay.
It is unacceptable. Talandra would fuck Kantos, surely.
This is so uncomfortable. What the hell is going on?
Doesn't order Kantos to sexually harass people.
Oh, God.
They just do.
I don't want to be here anymore.
They are the Riker.
So
We established this. They're a Riker
After trying to
ripoff.
stop Kantos from fucking the help, Athan has just decided to just roll with this
Find ways for Kantos to fuck the help. That are
usefully.
useful.
If in the Alpha universe you're called the Trash Fam, then in the Mirror universe you're called the Fash Tram, which I think is fucking bad.
All about the fast travel.
All about that. Toot.
Why? Nobody clip that.
Somebody clip that.
All aboard the Fash Tram. Toot. We are through the looking glass, I'm afraid.
Mike, you can't
Wait,
put
shit,
this on
Veritas?
YouTube. We're gonna get taken down with the latest wave of deplatforming.
So we are the If You Flash crew.
Flash crew is fine.
And you have and you've just enjoyed an episode of Evil Space Communists. I hope you enjoy them getting their decadent comeuppance. In the meantime, I'm going to hand over to Praxis Descends, who will read a list of our state-mandated supporters, who, of course, are doing their patriotic duty by sending us revenue.
Hello, revenue supporters. I've really been thrown off.
The thing is, I'm actually not very well versed in what fascism is. So I'm just kind of taking my cue from the man in the high castle. I don't think they were very well versed in what fascism is either. So
Fascism is that thing you go and punch, isn't it?
I too believe in putting
punchable
swastikas in lamps.
There were swastikas in that program in everything. There came a point where we were just like, that lamp is swastika shaped. Why is that? Why the lamp? Why?
Someone who is a set designer was paid to just think, this is great, but how can we get more swastikas in it?
Swastikas in it. Like, that's your job. And then what you've made all these things.
So anyway, that being said, trash bags in the chat, if you will.
Fash bags.
Fash bags in the chat, if you will. For these wonderful people.
Oh my god.
The armchair Egyptologist, Ken Poyner, Kiwi Tokoeka, Photosynthetic.
The closest thing I have to a fash bag is this. But it's not very close.
Photosynthetic, who had a Romulan vessel named after him. Eligos Alexander, Liz Murphy, Michael Crease.
By the way, you have missed such a trick not appending SS ranks to all of these people. Obergruppenführer Lou Sutcliffe. Come on.
Deplatformed.
Crease.
No.
Andre Cherubnin. Joe. Lou Sutcliffe. Socky. Henry Prestige. Kathy.
Actually dying.
Hobbs 138. Obergruppenführer Mike Gilburn.
Oh, he'd love that.
Clip that.
James Malloy. Mike Fielding. Michael Bowman. I made my face hurts. And of course, the least fashy, everybody's favouritely named
1930s cabaret act.
The Trash Crew's answer to the Weimar Republic. Helena Handbusk.
Helena Handbusk is the thing that fails that gives way to us.
I'm sorry to report that we have lost every single patron. They have all cancelled. In fact,
they waited until they were read out.
So far, every single time you named them in association with this, new neo-fascist state, they cancelled. And in fact, somehow now we're in negative.
Yeah, we now
owe them money.
Which is weird.
They cancelled us so hard.
We're
going to prepare for the defamation lawsuit. Thank you all very much.
Southern Poverty Law Centre will be
we're going to be sued
of
by
our new
Nazis.
status.
I don't like cancel me daddy in the chat. I think I'm done with the internet for the day.
Do you like cancel me Obersternbahnführer from your paramour?
Yeah, I noticed that you picked on Sable there, but gave Lou's back-to-back comments a free pass.
I'm going to press the end stream button. I think this needs to die.